Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. Bring in Season 2 Part 30 of What If the Transformers Were in My Hero Academia. Link in the description of the fanfiction of this What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. Chapter 59, Rocky Mountain Fights. When Optimus Prime had said, "All hands on deck," Kyoka had figured that only meant those who were readily available. The ones who were prepared for combat and ready to take on the Decepticons at a moment's notice. She didn't think that it literally meant almost everybody. The moment she and the other Joes followed Jazz through the ground bridge, once the military men and women had recovered from their brief travel sickness, that is, she had been informed that they had yet more coming in soon. There were a few exceptions, however. Unfortunately, Ochako and Itsuka wouldn't be able to come, as they couldn't tell their mentor, Gunhead, about the Cybertronians, under Fowler's orders. It's time to keep a tighter lid on things around here. The Sector 7 agent had resolved. No more unnecessary people getting dragged into this mess, we've got enough heroes around here already. We understand, Agent Fowler. Ochako affirmed over the comms. Still, I wish we could do at least something to help. Itsuka added as well. Ochako, Itsuka, your support is more than enough. Optimus assured. I promise, we will succeed in this mission. Fowler piped up again. If it makes ya feel any better, you're not the only ones who gotta sit out. Abara can't make it either, since Kamui Woods is taking over operations in Edgeshot's absence. And of course, Tenya's still in the hospital with all his injuries. Ochako let out a sigh and accepted. Well, I guess that's a little reassuring. All the same, best of luck, guys. After overhearing that call, Kyoka and the Joes were told to wait outside with Jazz while this process happened, and before long, Izuku, Mirko, Momo and Edgeshot were all exiting the base as well, escorted out by Bee and Windblade. Once they all met up at the beach, Izuku sent his best friend a sheepish grin. Hey, so, I guess this is a situation that calls for everyone, huh? Yeah, apparently. Kyoka shrugged, craning her head up toward Jazz. I mean, I'm kinda surprised myself. I didn't expect Prime to bring all of us in on this. Jazz's expression was surprisingly quite serious, shaking his head down to her. We're in dire straits here, Kyo. Prime will explain more once everyone's here. Well, I'm honestly just glad that I finally get to kick some Decepticon asses. Mirko announced, slamming her fist into her palm. Gramps is gonna regret missing out on this, let me tell ya. You can't necessarily blame him for not wanting to come, though. Edgeshot pointed out. With everything that happened in Hosu, I believe Gran Torino's had enough action for 1 week. I just hope you take responsibility for your intern, as he wanted. Mirko rolled her eyes at that. Oh come on, I didn't let anything bad happen to the kid when we fought the hero killer and beat his ass, so I'm not about to start now. Edgeshot narrowed his eyes at her. And I take it you've already forgotten that that is classified information. PSH, not around here, obviously. Mirko brushed off. Standing in solidarity with the rabbit hero, Kyoka and Momo nodded in agreement. She's correct, that's kind of an open secret around here, Master, the creation user said with a bow of her head, though she had to admit, it was still astounding every time she heard it. Momo eyed her green-haired friend with a shaky smile. Though I will say, I still can't believe that you, Mirko, Iida and Todoroki managed to accomplish that, Midoriya. Next to her, Kyoka seemed more peeved at the news than anything. Yeah, it's just too bad those guys in the police department won't let ya take full credit for it. Think about how your hero career would skyrocket early if you did. But Izuku shook his head, not wanting to delve back into that topic. It's best that I don't, really. To be completely honest, I don't want to be famous just yet. I've still got a lot to work on when it comes to, well, not being a nervous wreck in front of the public. Sorry for interjecting here, but weren't you the kid who won the sports festival? Duke reminded. And you're worried about the public after being in front of a crowd like that? Yes I am. And besides, there's a big difference between a bunch of screaming fans in a stadium and the press hounding me wherever I go. Seeing the Joes just staring at him, Izuku quickly realized something, though, I guess you guys haven't really experienced either, have you? Roadblock shook his head. Nope, None whatsoever, he scratched his chin thoughtfully, though as he recalled something else. Although, I guess I did play college football, so that does technically count for the screamin' fans part. Before the conversation could continue, however, the sounds of heavy footsteps garnered the group's attention, looking up to see Bulkhead, Sunstreaker and Sideswipe approaching from the base. And walking with them were none other than Crust and Gang Orca, the former waving over to them. "Heya, kids. And ha, yo, Joes. Good to see you all." Gang Orca addressed with a formal bow of the head to Hawk. "Especially you, General. It's been a long time." "Gang, always a pleasure." Hawk reciprocated with a handshake. "Thanks again for helping us stop Cobra from blowing up that oil rig in the middle of the ocean a couple years back. That could have been a disaster." "Whoa, Crust and Gang Orca. Prime really is bringing out the big guns," Kyoka observed, only to realize what that probably meant. But then that means. Sure enough, the two top pros moved out of the way, allowing them to see Denki, Setsuna, Eijiro, Mina and Tetsu all in their hero costumes. However, something was different about them. The five of them were keeping their heads low, their fists clenched to their sides, and were all grimacing seriously down to the ground. Not even Mina was wearing her characteristic smile, and Setsuna seemed to have no energy at all. Those two, in fact, seemed to be the sternest out of the group, which put the others off almost immediately. Hi, guys." Izuku greeted. There was no response, leading Kyoka and Momo to grow quite concerned. Are they okay?" the creation user asked. "You didn't break our friends, did you?" Kyoka glared accusingly to the two heroes. What? No," Crust assured, giving Eijiro a supportive pat on the shoulder. "These guys here have been nothing short of amazing over the course of their internships. You should see how much dedication they've been putting into their lessons, it's amazing." Orca hummed, folding his arms over his chest. "Yes, their training has been very valuable to them." He glanced down to Denki and Setsuna, who were both shaking like leaves. Granted, the first couple of days were somewhat trying for them, but they've risen to the challenge, to say the least. Then why do they look like they've just gone through hell and back? Kyoka questioned further. Unexpectedly, the five students all broke their silence at once, because we have. Gia. Kyoka stumbled back, but Izuku stopped her from tripping up. All the same, they and Momo were left astonished by just how ragged their friends were, clearly tired and sore from their week's worth of training. Still, that didn't earn Kyoka's sympathies as she shot back, "Guys, what the hell? Don't do that, you scared me." Oh, you think that's scary?" Mina exclaimed, marching her way up to get right in Kyoka's face. "Try having to deal with swinging maces, walls covered in spikes and freaking bladed pendulums in every single training exercise." Setsuna quickly joined the pink-haired girl, adding, "Yeah, and the training that me and Kaminari have gone through." We've had to fight Gang Orca himself several times, along with a lot of his sidekicks. At the same time, it's like facing an actual freaking whale in his pod on land." By that point, much to everyone's surprise, Denki actually broke down and sunk into the fetal position, sobbing into his knees and prompting Setsuna to go over and comfort him. Oh god, not again. Kaminari, SSH, it's okay. We're not training. So dark. It was so dark. The blonde's screams were muffled, but no less off-putting. Setsuna pursed her lips and explained to the others. He had us train in a pitch-black room once. One covered in rubber so that his quirk wouldn't work as well. All eyes went immediately to Orca and Crust, the former standing firm while Crust winced sheepishly. Okay, maybe some of our training was a little overboard, the latter admitted. No. Eijiro speaking up took everybody by surprise. He and Tetsu kept their heads down for a moment as he went on. Tetsu picked up before both boys shouted. Awesome. For their part, Mina and Setsuna were left slack-jawed, seeing the redhead and silver-haired boys wearing similar energetic grins, pumping their arms high in the air. Seriously. After Crust's training, I feel like I've only just gotten more and more durable by the day. Eijiro asserted. It's like Sideswipe's training, but on overdrive. Tetsu shared in his friend's enthusiasm. I know, right. It's like my armor's gone from just metal to tempered steel. I feel like I can take anything on. Decepticons included. He snapped around to beam down at Denki. Kaminari, I know you've been put through the ringer, but be honest, do ya feel more powerful or not? After a couple sniffles, the electric blonde managed to pick his head up, his eyes puffy from the crying. I mean, yeah, I do, but was it really worth getting the crap kicked out of you? Bro, you're going to get the crap kicked out of ya by even worse villains if ya don't toughen up. Eijiro reasoned, tightening his fist and thrusting it out to his best friend. I dunno about you, but I'd rather be the one doing the ass kicking. What about you? You just gonna sit there and whine, or are you gonna take Gang Orca's lessons seriously and man up? Denki trailed off, unsure how to answer at first. On the one hand, his mind was telling him to retreat back into his ball of safety. But on the other, his gut and his heart were telling him something very different. Damn it, I'll never be a real hero if I whine about stuff all the time. His eyes drifted briefly up to Sunstreaker, remembering what had happened at the Decepticons ship just a few weeks back. I've gotta stop complaining and try and channel the energy I felt after seeing Sunstreaker get hurt. I don't know if it was bravery or stupidity, but in that moment, I did feel like a hero. Denki tightened his lips and stood up, raising his fists in solidarity with the boys. Why yeah, you're right. I'm not gonna whine, I'm gonna fight. Tetsu gave him a thumbs up. Ha ha ha, that's the spirit, man. Meanwhile, Mina and Setsuna were left flabbergasted for a moment, though they were also left impressed with Denki's rapid turnaround. Sheesh. The green-haired girl rubbed her neck. Now I feel kinda bad about complaining about all that. This earned her a surprised look from Mina, leading her to explain, I mean, if Kaminari's willing to suck it up, then who are we to be total grouches about it? That and, she glanced guiltily toward Orca and Crust. It's kinda disrespectful to our mentors, ya know. Mina's expression fell into a frown, feeling guilty after Setsuna made her point. Yeah, you're right. She immediately bowed apologetically to Crust. I'm sorry, sir. And we're sorry, too, both Setsuna and Denki said in unison as they bowed to Gang Orca. Surprisingly, Gang Orca nodded to them in approval. Apology accepted. You've finally figured it out. All three of the students snapped their heads back up in confusion. Huh. Kids, I feel like I shouldn't have to state the obvious, but the training was meant to toughen you up. Crust continued. Your combat ability is one thing, but as a hero, your resolve has to be steeled in order to truly commit, not just to your future career, but to confronting dangerous situations while helping people you swear to protect. He raised a finger and smiled down to the three. Kirishima and Tetsu realized that immediately, and deep down, I think you three knew, too. It just took some time for you to figure it out as well. The trio blinked as the lesson settled in, with Mina glancing down at her hands. So, this was all to test our resolve. To toughen us up more. Gang Orca let out a soft chuckle. Why do you think we put out offers to some of the most reckless students in UA? We saw how you all performed at the sports festival, after all, and we both resolved to want to help you be better. This managed to get a smile out of the teens, who began congratulating one another afterward. Off to the side, however, Kyoka narrowed her eyes at the Orsinus user. Hold on a sec. If that's the case, then why'd I get an offer from you, sir? You, admittedly, were an exception. Gang Orca admitted. I noted your skills with sound and thought that I would be able to teach you how I utilize my own sonic-based abilities. He craned his head over to Snake Eyes. Though I had no idea that you of all people had put out an offer to her as well, Snake Eyes. Either way, Miss Jiro, you wouldn't have been losing out on anything. Well, I can't deny that. Kyoka nudged her head over to her master. Snake has been a pretty good teacher. It was only then that Eijiro, Denki, Mina, Setsuna and Tetsu finally noticed Snake Eyes, along with all of the military men and women who were gathered there. Whoa, that's Snake Eyes, Eijiro exclaimed. And who the hell are all these people? Mina added before noticing someone else. And is that Mirko? Hiya, was all the rabbit hero had to say to that. Izuku couldn't help but sigh and run a hand down his face. Here we go again. Introduction time. The process took quite a few minutes, to say the least, but eventually, everyone was familiarized with one another. Once that was through, however, Sideswipe and Sunstreaker approached Kaminari and Kirishima from behind, each placing a hand on their respective partner's shoulders. Okay, so, everybody get acquainted well with one another? The yellow Lambo brother asked. Denki nodded up to him. Yeah, pretty much. All good here. Eijiro affirmed with a thumbs up. Sideswipe put on a wide, cheery smile. Good. Then we can get this out of the way. The very next second, both brothers knocked Denki and Eijiro together, taking everyone else by surprise as the boys fell to the ground in a daze. That's for tricking us into putting those gaudy clothes on our holoforms, you little sneaks. Sunstreaker pouted down to the stunned duo, their heads spinning in circles. Yeah, what the pit, guys. I thought we were pals. Once the boys shook the dizziness from their heads, they quickly realized what the brothers were upset about. And surprisingly, Denki and Eijiro were also a bit disappointed, though not for the same reasons. Ah, seriously. We missed it. Gah, darn. Eijiro sat up, rubbing his head in frustration. And here I thought we'd be around for that. He glanced over to the rest of the group, who were stifling back their own laughter at the scene. Okay, har har, but did any of you guys get to see it at least? Was it funny? Oh, hilarious. Kyoka assured, pointing back to base just as Strongarm, Springer, Eraser and Flare Up came strolling down to the beach. Ask Strongarm, she got a pic of it. The redhead and blonde lit up at the news, whirling around to the cadet. Really? Sweet. Eijiro waved Strongarm over. Yo, Strongarm, I heard ya got the goods on our little prank. Hearing him, the police bot smirked wryly and brought her hand up, ready to project the image for all to see. Oh, you bet I do, Eijiro. I have to say, you boys really outdid yours. Ah. Hey. She was suddenly tackled straight to the ground by Sideswipe, the red Lambo brother pinning her onto her stomach and keeping a knee on her back. Ah. Sideswipe, you little. I am not about to be embarrassed in front of G.I. Joe's most prestigious members, Strongarm. Sideswipe hollered, reaching for her hand. Now delete that photo. Never. Now. Not a chance. Just do it. The two bots continued to bicker and squabble as they tumbled through the yard and the beach, kicking up clumps of dirt and throwing sand everywhere. All the while, the other Autobots and humans stood awkwardly off to the side, witnessing the chaos unfold. That didn't last, however, as Hawk came up to Kyoka's side and asked, "Are things always like this between those two?" Kyoka grimaced while replying, "Yup, pretty much." Hawk sighed, putting a hand to his forehead. "Ha, that's what I was afraid of. Hang back here, I'll break it up." "Are you sure, General?" Izuku stammered. "If you're not careful." But the man raised a reassuring hand. "Don't worry, son, I've handled much worse arguments than this. This'll be over in 2 seconds." Moving over to the rolling robots, Hawk stopped at a safe distance, took a deep breath, and then with surprising volume, roared out. "Enough." The deep, gravely bellow took the teens off guard, with the Joes all flinching slightly as Sideswipe and Strongarm finally stopped. "What the hell is wrong with you two scrap bags? Get off of each other and get to your damn feet, soldiers." The two Autobots wasted no time following his orders, standing straight at attention. "Whoa." Eijiro squeaked out. "Yeah, you don't wanna be on the receiving end of that, kid." Duke encouraged. Scarlet nodded in agreement. Hawk used to be a drill sergeant in his early days. "Ya don't wanna get, I am on your bad side, that's all I'll say." Strongarm kept her optics forward as she saluted Hawk. "Sir. I apologize for my lack of decorum, sir." Sideswipe mimicked her. "What she said, sir." But Hawk narrowed his eyes up at the red bot. "A likely story. Drop and give me 20. Without hesitation, Sideswipe followed his order. "You too, cadet." And just like that, Strongarm was back on the ground as well, both bots doing the acquired number of push-ups. "Just be lucky we don't have time for more, otherwise I'd have you putting those servos to work." "Gah, man," Sideswipe bemoaned. "This, sucks. HMPH. Must, respect, the general." Strongarm advised between push-ups. As the bots did their exercises, though, a certain woman piped up from the side. "Hee, seems like you haven't lost your touch, Uncle Hawk." The sound of her voice took the general aback slightly, along with the other Joes. Sure enough, coming down from the base with RC, was none other than Marissa, the brunette smiling down to the older man. "I remember when you used to try that with me whenever Mom brought me to visit." And all I did was giggle. Hawk was utterly flabbergasted seeing Marissa, as were his troops. "Ma, Marissa." Slowly but surely, he smiled as he approached her, a short chortle passing by his lips. "Ha, it's been quite a while, hasn't it? 5 years, if I remember correctly." Marissa confirmed before her eyes shifted over to Duke, Scarlet, Roadblock, Wild Bill and the others. Hey everybody. How are you, oof. Ah, Mar, oh my god, it's been ages. Scarlet shouted, enveloping Marissa in a big hug. For their part, Bill and Roadblock were left pleasantly surprised. Huh, well, shine my boots, you're really are here after all. Wild Bill went over and tipped his hat to the younger girl. How've ya been, little lady? Well, I guess I can't exactly call ya little anymore, yeah. Marissa shook her head. Huh, no, not really, Uncle Bill. But it's good to see you. She craned her head up, beaming to Roadblock with a big smile. And Uncle Marv, it's so nice to see you, too. Surprisingly, Roadblock seemed almost ready to choke up. Huh, little Mar. He wrapped his massive arms around her comparatively small form, which she did her best to reciprocate. Good gosh, girl, how've you been? Jinx told us you were here last night and we were excited to see you. Where'd you go off to? Yeah, sorry about bailing at the last minute. Marissa apologized. I needed to get back to something I was doing back at base. Yeah, I'll bet. Duke said with slight suspicion, only to shake his head and brush that all off. But who cares? You're here now, and it's great to see you. As she fell out of Roadblock's embrace, Marissa went over to Duke and gave him a brief hug as well. The feeling's mutual, Duke. At least now, anyways. Her confession took the Joes off guard, but she was quick to explain. I won't lie, seeing you guys come here, it brought out a lot of memories. Both good and not so good. Hawk nodded in understanding. Yes, I'm sure it did. Noticing the sudden melancholy that had fallen over the moment, the students and Autobots were quick to inquire about it. Did we miss something? Mina spoke up, raising a questioning brow to the Sector 7 medic. Marissa, you know these G.I. Joe guys. And you're close to them, at that. RC furthered. Kyoka narrowed her gaze a bit at Marissa. Yeah, she did mention something about keeping Joes honest yesterday. What was that all about? That earned Marissa a lot of scrutinizing looks, namely from Jinx and her team of Joes, while Hawk and the others fell into an awkward silence. The only one who didn't seem to be on either side was Snake Eyes, who approached Marissa and set a hand to her shoulder, giving her a supportive nod. You're right, Snake. I can't keep running from this anymore. She took a deep breath and faced the teens head on. Guys, the truth is that my roots are tied pretty firmly to G.I. Joe, as hard as that is to admit. For the first 10 years of my life, though, I had no idea about that. What do you mean by that, Marissa? Momo asked, suddenly feeling a bit worried about what they were going to find out. Young lady, when someone becomes a member of G.I. Joe, they're sworn to complete secrecy. Hawk explained, his gaze sympathetic toward Marissa as he did so. They have to leave their old life behind in order to protect their loved ones, lest Cobra take advantage of them for their own gain. He gestured around to the rest of the Joes. Almost everyone you see here has either disappeared under mysterious circumstances, or fakes their deaths entirely. Marissa continued from there. For me, it was the former category. The truth is, guys, both of my parents are in G.I. Joe. The revelation earned several shocked expressions, even a few gasps from the teens, while the Autobots simply stared at her in surprise. Yeah, I know. That was my reaction. Setsuna began putting 2 and 2 together by that point. Hold on, so if you didn't know this for the first 10 years of your life, then that means. They left when I was a baby, yes. The brunette confirmed, keeping a stiff upper lip to keep herself together. I was raised by my aunt and uncle, who they entrusted me to before they disappeared, though like I said, that only lasted until I was 10 years old. Her fists tightened at her sides. Somehow, Cobra managed to find out about us, and one day, they kidnapped me, taking my aunt and uncle hostage. You can imagine the rescue effort that was mounted after that happened. Almost every Joe at the time stormed Cobra's base of operations to get them back. Duke emphasized, jerking a thumb between himself, Scarlet and Snake Eyes. Hell, S3 were mostly newbies at the time, but even we knew how important this was. The daughter of Flint and Lady J was on the line, and they were at the very front of the pack. "Ha, ya shoulda seen him," Scarlet said with a breathy chuckle. "I don't think I've seen anything more intense and brutal than when Jay ran through several Cobra grunts all at once. It was a massacre." Roadblock shook his head. "Yeah, well, we had no sympathy for anyone associated with Cobra on that day, I can tell ya that much." He nodded over to Marissa. "Thankfully, when we found her, she and her family were okay, but the aunt and uncle let it slip when they saw Jay and Flint alive and well." Hawk shrugged at that, which, to be fair, we can't blame them. Missing family suddenly appearing in the most unexpected places does tend to get reactions like that. He took in a deep breath and let out an even deeper sigh. Still, what happened couldn't be taken back. The family now knew exactly what happened to Jay and Flint, and let's just say that none of them were happy about it. His gaze traveled over to Marissa once more. Some more than others. HMPH, that's an understatement. Marissa clarified. "I was pissed at both of them for an entire year after that," she trailed off, however, as a smile managed to curl to her lips. "But, damn, my mother was stubborn as hell to earn my trust back. She showed up to every special occasion, Christmas, Easter, freaking Halloween. She was dressed as an astronaut. By the way, she did it all. It was only on my 11th birthday when I finally broke down and forgave her." "Oh, what did she do that finally earned your forgiveness?" Kyoka inquired. Pulling back the collar of her shirt, Marissa revealed the necklace she was wearing and pulled up, revealing a locket hiding inside her clothes. "She gave me this." Marissa opened the locket, showing the teens a picture of a woman holding a little baby in a hospital bed, wearing a bright smile. "This was taken on the day I was born," she explained. "My mom kept this with her everywhere she went to remember me by, and she wanted me to have it so that I knew that she would never leave my life again. After that, I let out a lot of pent-up emotions, and she just let me. I said a lot of crap about her until I started bawling my eyes out. We hugged, we both cried, and long story short, fences were mended with her that day." Almost in unison, Mina, Setsuna, Momo and even Kyoka all went, "AAWWW." The acid user in particular couldn't help but clap her hands together happily. "That's so freaking sweet. I'm glad that you were able to repair your relationship with your mom." There was a brief pause before Mina went on. "So, what about your dad?" Almost immediately, Marissa's expression soured, and the teens quickly figured out that they had touched a nerve. "My dad's a workaholic stick in the mud who's spent the last decade and a half avoiding me whenever possible." ACH. Fair God's sake, Marissa. Scarlet shouted, the other Joes all groaning and shaking their heads. "We've been over this. Da's not avoiding ya, he's just trying to." "Nope. Don't wanna hear it." Marissa shut down immediately. "I don't want any more of his lame excuses. The fact that he's worked almost non-stop for the last several years makes me think that he's more married to his job than my mother half the time. Marissa, if you'd just hear him out." When would I have the time to hear him out? He doesn't show up for holidays, he's only sent me birthday cards, I barely ever see him." Hawk interjected at that point. "Marissa, you have to understand. Your father does all of this so." But Marissa stopped him again. "Uncle Hawk, with all due respect, I want answers from him. If he can even make the time, that is." Before the conversation could get more heated, however, a certain Autobot chimed in from further up the hill. Ahem. Everyone whirled around, seeing none other than Optimus standing before them all. Red Alert was by his side as well, with Longarm, May, the Street Action Minicons and the Minicon Council all subsequently standing by him. "I apologize for interruption," Optimus said hesitantly. "I can tell that this discussion is rather important, but we are finally ready to begin." "Oh, of course, Prime." Hawk waved. "Please, continue." However, he made a point to lean over to Marissa, murmuring under his breath, "This discussion isn't over. We'll finish this later." He received an irritated hum in response. "Thank you, Hawk." Optimus nodded back to him before setting his attention out to his Autobots, the students, their hero mentors and the rest of the Joes. "Firstly, I am sorry that things took a while to get underway. We were anticipating a certain arrival and the wait ended up being much longer than we had expected. That made Izuku tilt his head. What do you mean, Prime? Beneath his faceplate, Prime wore a knowing smile and chuckled a little. Well, in light of some of our usual friends not being able to make it, I reached out to a new ally to see if they would be willing to help. And fortunately, he answered. Optimus stepped to the side, revealing who this ally was, and immediately, every student in the hero course was left gobsmacked. Even Izuku and Kyoka, who had a good idea of who Optimus was talking about, were still stunned by his appearance. But there he was, Shoto Todoroki, dressed in his hero costume and with his arm pretty much fully healed up. He stared resolutely toward the group, nodding curtly toward Izuku first. Midoriya, everyone, how's it been? Todoroki. Izuku acknowledged. You're looking well. That's great. Eijiro, however, was much more willing to speak the minds of his peers. Todoroki. What the flying hell? Wa, how? When? Where? For what reason? Denki managed to jabber out. On the other hand, Mirko seemed to be fairly calm about the whole thing. Hey, Fire and Ice. She saluted over to him. How are your arm doing after that spat with the hero killer? And just like that, the students exclaimed, the hero killer. Momo and Kyoka eyed one another, realizing only then that the group hadn't been filled in on all of that. Yeah, the perplet uttered. Remember when Izuku sent us all his location in the group chat? When he was in Hosu during the Nomu attack. One by one, she could see the math being done in her friends' heads, all of them staring incredulously at their green-haired friend. Yeah, you can probably guess what happened. Dude, did you fight the freaking hero killer? Tetsu exclaimed. But all the news reports are saying it was her. Setsuna pointed over to Mirko erratically, her hand shaking and threatening to pop off. Mirko was the one to clarify that. Yeah, I did, though the media's saying that I did it alone. She jerked her thumb over to the two boys. But in reality, I couldn't have done it without these two and your friend, Engine Legs, by my side. Hold on, so Todoroki, Iida, and Midoriya all helped you take down Stain. Mina reiterated, with Mirko giving a confirming thumbs up. The pink-haired girl stared off into the distance along with her friends, trying to let the information sink in. My whole world's been turned upside down. Shoto couldn't help but roll his eyes, nudging his head over to Bumblebee. Yeah, well, we can't take all the credit. After all, it was your yellow friend over there who pummeled Stain into the pavement after all was said and done. Everyone's head snapped over to Bumblebee, who rubbed his neck and buzzed sheepishly. ZRKT, what can I say? ZRKT, I'm an animal. You're something alright, B. Eijiro smirked before addressing Shoto again. But hey, this is awesome. Now we've got Class 1A's top student in on the secret. The cons don't stand a chance, now. Yeah, but how are you even here? Denki inquired. How'd you convince your dad to do this? Well, that's the thing, he doesn't know I'm here. Shoto answered bluntly. He had to leave on an important mission that he couldn't take me on as an intern. Too dangerous, apparently. He glanced off to the side. So, what better way to spend the rest of my final day at my old man's agency than to just blatantly go out and fight in a situation that's potentially even more dangerous? Optimus knelt down next to him, placing a hand upon the boy's back. Normally, Shoto, I wouldn't approve of that sort of thought process in decision-making. However, given that your father has been rather rude to us, to say the least, I cannot exactly say that I disapprove of it either. He could see hints of a smirk on the boy that disappeared almost as quickly, as if to say, thank you, silently. The Prime gave him a simple nod in return before rising to his feet once again. Now, Autobots, heroes, students, Joes, we are ready to begin. As if on cue, the members of G.I. Joe all lined up with one another. Seeing this, the heroes and their protégés all did the same, with the Autobots doing so as well behind them. All the while, Optimus began laying out his battle plan. Now, to be perfectly clear, we are about to confront a sizable battalion of Decepticons. Likely the largest that we have faced so far. Starscream is quite serious about collecting this energon, so it makes sense that he's bringing every asset he has to make sure nothing gets in his way. He paused and craned his head back to the troops. Of course, I will still attempt for a diplomatic solution first. If peace is still an option, I will strive to reach it, but if it cannot be reached, then we go in prepared for conflict. Tiger Claw concluded. Kamakura gave a shrug. Pretty much just like any confrontation with Cobra, really. Except, you know, these guys are big robots that could turn into war machines. Not, could, but, definitely. Bulkhead corrected. Be ready for anything, boys. Roadblock gave a laugh, tightening the grip on the machine gun that was strapped to his shoulder. Oh, you'd best believe that we're be prepared, Bulkhead. We're gonna kick those Decepticon punks all the way to Timbuktu and back. Mina couldn't help but smile excitedly at his declaration. Ooh, I'm liking this guy already. He speaks my language. Meanwhile, Red Alert gestured down to May, Longarm, and the other mini-cons at his side. We will be remaining here to observe the battle and dictate strategies through the Sky Spy. If necessary, I will send the mini-con teams into the battle for further aid. With that as the given word, May threw her invention up into the air and it instantly unfolded its satellite panels, taking off and floating high above the group. Marissa will be your acting medic on the battlefield, but should any Autobot be hurt, I'll create a ground bridge and get you out as fast as I can. Just make sure that no cons get through, though, okay? May said with a surprisingly amount of seriousness, pointing a finger straight at the team. Otherwise, you'll have to answer to ME if any of my babies get broken. Ha, we hear you loud and clear, May. Izuku affirmed, his sights trailing back to Optimus. But will All Might be joining us on this mission? Optimus shook his head, much to his disappointment. No, unfortunately. All Might has been responding to troubles all across Japan today. It wouldn't be right to take the symbol of peace away right now. Still, he stood firm and clenched a determined fist. Even so, I have faith that we will succeed. Oh, but one more thing. Roller. Driving down the hill from the base, Roller came over to the group, towing what appeared to be a large, white container on wheels on his hitch. Here they are, Prime. Just as you requested. Thank you, old friend. Optimus gently pulled open the top of the container, revealing, to everybody's astonishment, an array of human-sized laser rifles and pistols. I requested these from Agent Fowler ahead of time. Those of you who do not have a quirk sufficient enough to do damage to Decepticons, take one of these. It is important that you have something that can defend yourself. Duke smiled and eagerly rubbed his hands together. Oh ho ho, now we're talking. He reached down and brought the weapon into his arms, pulling back on the cocking mechanism to make it light up with bright blue energy. Yeah, this'll do plenty of damage. At least until the air support team comes in. Hawk, Wild Bill, Tiger Claw and even Jinx followed suit, the latter observing the small weapon in her hand. Normally, I wouldn't use ranged weapons, but between this and my quirk, I think I'll be fine. Yes, this will be sufficient. Tiger Claw chuckled, holding two rifles in his paws as he offered one to Kamakura. Want one, old friend? Nah, I think my quirk will be enough. Kamakura turned down, giving him a knowing smirk. Hey, those cons don't stand a chance when I bring out the lightning swarm. Yeah, same here, Roadblock assured, taking his machine gun off his shoulder with a proud smile. Don't care what the enemy's made of, Olmadu's here'll shred him to pieces. And if she don't, I'll do it personally. Scarlet took a rifle as well, though only as a precaution. Just in case. Kenzie, I suggest you take one, too. Don't wanna get caught in a sticky situation. Quick Kick didn't seem too thrilled about it, but she took a pistol and holstered it at her hip. Yeah, K. I'm gonna pulverize those cons, though, even if it's just below their knees. Once all of the Joes were armed and ready, Optimus gave one final nod to the group. Alright, now, are we all clear on the plan? Yes sir. The crowd shouted all at once. Good. The time for preparations has ended then. Autobots, heroes, Joes, roll out. Rocky Mountains, Colorado. In one of the most remote regions of the Rocky Mountain Range, the Autobots' ground bridge opened up, allowing the team to roll through into their destination. Of course, everyone was riding with somebody, with the bots, vehicle modes at near max capacity. The only one who wasn't technically inside of one of them was Roadblock, and that was because he was riding on Bulkhead's truck bed, with Betsy mounted on the wrecker's roof. Windblade, Erazor and Springer came walking through behind the others, the city speaker already on high alert. "Keep your optics and audio receptors sharp," she warned, the Autobots pulling to a stop. The Decepticons could be here any minute. As if on cue, several Viacon jets went screaming overhead, though oddly enough, they didn't even attempt to turn around after seeing them. The move made Erazor confused. Why did they not attack? We're out in the open. Optimus opened his doors, prompting Hawk, Duke, Scarlet and Shoto to disembark before he transformed. "If I had to guess, I would say that Starscream likely already knew we would arrive," he stated. "Which means he's waiting for ya, Prime," Jazz pointed out. "How do ya wanna go about this?" "As I said, Jazz, diplomacy comes first," Prime avowed, beginning his ascent up the rock face toward where the jets had come from. "And, if things do not go well, you know what we must do." Receiving a nod from all the humans as they themselves emerged from their rides, Optimus steadied himself and continued up over the ridge. "Wish me luck." Once he was gone, however, Springer shook his head. "Listen, I appreciate Prime's dedication to peace and all, but we all know how this is gonna go, right? Such is the nature of things," Wild Bill said with a tip of the hat. "But ya gotta admit, Prime's one hell of a leader. He's got a good head on him shoulders." Hawk smiled at that as well. You're quite right, Bill. Now come on, troops. Let's prepare ourselves as best we can here." Just past the ridge, Optimus stood tall and defiant in the presence of tens of dozens of Viacon troopers, all of them either on the ground or in the air circling around their leader. High in the air with his arms crossed and rocket thrusters keeping him aloft, Starscream wore an insidious smirk toward Optimus, keeping his chin lifted in superiority. Well, if it isn't the bot of the hour." Prime was about to speak his piece, but swooping down from the sky, a certain flying shark went rushing past the Autobot leader, snapping his jaws in hopes of making his enemy flinch. However, all Optimus did was narrow his optics after Skybite as he flew up next to Starscream, transforming into his robot mode. Seriously, Prime," the Predacon bemoaned, not even a little frightened. "Seems you never change, do you?" "I am not here to play games, Skybite," the Prime asserted with a calm swipe of his hand. "Simply to broker peace." Yes, of course, Optimus." Starscream rolled his optics, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Because I'm sure that your dozens of troops aren't armed and prepared for battle." He thrust his hands out toward the Viacons around them, all while Thundercracker and Skywarp flew in as well. On the ground as well, Barricade, Flatline and Blastwave were also present, the latter glowering straight at Optimus. "As you can see, my Decepticons are ready to fight." But Optimus shook his head, adamant in his stance. "While it is true that my Autobots are armed, Starscream, it is only out of precaution. It doesn't have to be this way." He raised his hands imploringly. "Let us put aside this pointless conflict. Enough energon has been spilled already, and we don't need to risk more being destroyed." Skybite was just as obstinate in his view on the matter as well, though. "Then step aside, Prime. You have tried several times to get Decepticons to abandon their dedication to Lord Megatron's cause in the past, and, by my count, it has only worked once." His smile widened and he spread his arms out jubilantly. "And guess how that ended up, Do I need to remind you again of who destroyed your former right-hand bot? That traitor to the cause. Oh, right. It was ME. Ahahaha. By Primus, he is way overselling this." Starscream thought to himself. Despite himself, Optimus could feel his fists tighten. Many bots thought that he never got angry, always keeping a level head even in the worst situations. And while that was true most of the time, hearing his friend receive such slander would not go unavenged. "Skybite, Starscream, I am giving you one last chance. Let us split the energon fairly, and we can go our separate ways on this day without anyone getting hurt." Skybite tapped his chin in mock pondering, but quickly thrust out his claw hand with Dragonus already inside. "No." Pow! The torpedo mini-con shot out straight toward Optimus, but much to Skybite's shock, the Autobot leader caught the projectile with one hand, reeling his fist back to punch it down to the ground. Prime allowed Dragonus to transform and flee, slowly craning his head back up toward a very intimidated Skybite. "Never let it be said I didn't try. Autobots. Almost all at once, the Autobot team transformed and rushed onto the ridge with their leader, all while Windblade, Springer and Eraser took to the skies in their vehicle modes. Heroes. Once again, leaping from below, Gang Orca, Crust, Mirko, Edgeshot and the UA. Students came to Prime's side, all of them readying themselves for battle. Joe's. Finally, with Hawk leading the charge, the G.I. Joe team charged in, with Prime pointing straight toward the Decepticons. Engage the enemy. You heard him, troops. Hawk encouraged, raising a fist to the air. You Jue. You Jue. The others echoed. And before long, the hearing hero, Earphone Jack, gave a shrug. Why not? Yo Joe. Before long, her friends were echoing her sentiment. You Jue. They all cried out, following the soldiers into battle. The only exception was Shoto, who watched in bafflement as his peers ran into the fray. Is it always like this? He muttered. Flare-Up knelt down and gave him a wink. Ah, you'll get used to it, love. Now come on. Flicking her arms up, she pulled out her twin pistols as the energy core in her chest lit up. Let's go kick some Decepti chumps. And just like that, she sped off at incredible speeds, leaving Shoto with his hair blowing in the wind. I hear that, Flare. Bulkhead said as he transformed back into vehicle mode, calling out to Roadblock and Mina. Hey, you two. He pulled up to the duo before they could get too far, bringing them to a halt. Instead of going in on foot, how about we get you two a bit more mobile in a destructive way? Ooh, I like the sound of that. Mina clapped her hands together, getting into Bulkhead's driver's seat. Let's do this. Roadblock returned to where he once was as well, mounting Ma-Deuce on Bulkhead's roof. I'm on your back, Jack. Let's take these cons down. Not needing to be told twice, Bulkhead stepped on the gas and rolled into battle, all while Mina and Roadblock rained acid and shells respectively onto the Viacons that got in their way. Following them in the sky, Springer couldn't help but laugh at the devastating force that his fellow wrecker had put together. Ha. Genius. Acid, bullets and a battering ram. Bulk was always pretty creative when it came to reckon. His attention diverted to the passenger that he had partnered with for this mission. Let's not let him outdo us, though. Ya hear me, Wild Bill? Hee. That's a Big 10-4, good buddy. Yeah. Bill gave a thumbs up before putting both hands onto Springer's controls. He had to admit, at first he was overwhelmed after touching them, receiving a glimpse into the ins and outs of a triple changer. But, once he had calmed down, things began to make a bit more sense. Gotta say, one helluva loaded gun there, Springer. Hope we're ready to have an equally helluva flyin' ace as a pilot. Ha, so long as you can wreck and rule with the best of 'em, it's an honor to have you behind the controls. Wild Bill smirked eagerly. Well, guess that settles it. Let's go in. Pressing a button on Springer's control stick, the cowboy activated twin guns that came unfurling from the chopper's side stabilizers, which locked onto several Viacons almost immediately. Yeehaw! Yo Jue! Across the battlefield, Starscream was, baffled, to say the least. He had expected the Autobots, he had expected the children, he had even expected at least a handful of heroes, but a human military force. Where had they come from all of a sudden? Is this some sort of joke? Starscream questioned his brothers and Skybite through clenched teeth. Is Prime really so desperate as to bring in, not more heroes, but human soldiers? I doubt it's desperation. Thundercracker denied. Knowing Prime, he might be really confident in, whoever these, Joe, people or if he brought them to the front lines. They could have powerful quirks as well. Skywarp advised, cocking his shotguns. We should be careful with these ones. Skybite spun around to them in midair, throwing a hand up theatrically. Agreed. I suggest we break up into groups and attempt to overwhelm them with our sheer numbers. Surely they cannot take us all at once. Starscream hummed, feeling the plan to be sound. Agreed. Decepticons. Break up into pairs and take a battalion of Viacons. We must not allow the Autobots anywhere near the Energon. He thrust a finger down and shouted, attack. Before transforming into his jet mode, passing straight over a certain police con. Barricade. You and Frenzy are with me. Needless to say, the cop wasn't too thrilled. Oh, fantastic. Hopefully this goes better than the last time. Nonetheless, Barricade transformed and drove after Starscream, ready to trounce any Autobot who stood in his way. Come, brother. Skywarp beckoned, transforming into his own jet mode. I've spotted those annoying twin Autobots. Let's destroy them. A simple hum was all Thundercracker had to respond with, but before he departed, he took note of Skybite, who hadn't moved from his spot. In fact, the Predacon seemed to be glaring toward the ground for some reason. So, what are you gonna do? I am going to do what Megatron asked of me. Skybite replied, shouting, Beast Mode. Before shifting back into Shark Mode once again. And bring Optimus Prime back to Cybertron in chains. Wasting no time, Skybite rocketed straight down to Prime, interrupting the Autobot leader as he shot at several incoming Viacons. Gah! A pained yell escaped Optimus' throat as Skybite bit down hard on his arm, his teeth piercing through his armor with relative ease. Ah, no you don't. Dropping his ion blaster, Prime's hand pulled into his arm and he brought out his Energon axe, swinging it down towards Skybite's head. The Predacon gasped and immediately let go, just barely getting out of the way of the incoming cleave. Terrorize. Going back into robot mode, Skybite caught Optimus' axe with his claw hand, his other hand slamming into the Primes as they grappled for supremacy. We will not lose this battle, Optimus. Megatron is counting on ME to bring you back as prisoner. You will face him. Perhaps, Skybite, but not in shackles. Optimus countered with a sweeping kick, throwing Skybite off balance and getting in a punch to the head. After tumbling away, Skybite growled and raised his arm, firing off Stansting at Optimus. The Autobot leader went to roll away, but the torpedo minicon redirected itself, making impact with the ground near him and blowing Prime away several feet. He stopped when his back hit a rock, which allowed Skybite to come in and slam his foot against Optimus' chest. From there, Sandsting and Dragonus came in and transformed, clamping down on Prime's hands to keep him in place. Excellent. This situation actually brings my latest work to mind. Would you like to hear it? Oh, please no. But despite Optimus' pleas, Skybite recited it anyway, craning his head up to the cloudy sky. The darkened sky roils, zephyrs blow cold, and another hapless foe is crushed beneath my heel. Throwing his arms up, the Predacon declared, it's a vision of the future. The very near future, in fact. However, as he rambled on, Optimus noticed a certain head of white and red hair sneaking up from behind Skybite, prompting him to smirk under his faceplate. You might do better with limericks. Huh, what? From there, Prime really laid on the heat. Your imagery is derivative, it lacks semiotic cohesion, and the hapless foe is you. It was obvious that Skybite did not like that and he went to stab his claw down into Optimus' chest, but he and his mini-cons were all blown away with a wave of ice, sending them straight over Prime's head. Ha! Good timing, Shoto. The half-cold, half-hot user came up and gave Prime a nod. Thanks. Thanks for keeping him distracted for just a bit longer. Of course. Prime picked himself up off the ground, retrieving his ion blaster in the process. Now, what say we, incoming? Optimus ducked down, as did Shoto, as several laser blasts went shooting over their heads. The source was, of course, Skybite, who had recovered fairly quickly. Ha, leave it to a poet to not handle criticism well. Shoto, shall we take care of this? Taking that as his cue, Shoto's left side lit a flame, ready to follow the Autobot commander into battle. Right, let's light him up. Not far away, the G.I. Joe team was joined by Mirko, Deku, Earphone Jack, Bumblebee and Jazz, all of them mowing through the Viacon ranks. Armed with laser rifles, Duke, Hawk and Tiger Claw stood alongside the two Autobots, laying on the primary fire. Meanwhile, Scarlet and Kyoko remained more on the defensive, taking care of Viacons that managed to get too close while Kamakura kept their backs guarded. And finally, Deku and Mirko, Snake Eyes and Budo were going in for close combat, smashing and slashing their way through the opposition. Budo, in particular, had actually charged his sword with a powerful-looking energy that came from his body, passing through his arms and into his blade to boost its effectiveness. One swing of his sword sent a massive wave of silver light out at the Viacons, managing to cleave through them all cleanly before they all exploded in a blaze of glory. Deku, for his part, was amazing. That was awesome. What kind of quirk is that? My signature, young man. Budo answered, the samurai tipping his helmet. I call it, Sword Surge. My body is capable of producing energy that I can transfer into any bladed weapon. Just as another Viacon came charging at him, Budo swung around, putting more energy into his sword so that he could slice through its leg in one go. Though I probably should conserve it at this point. My body can only build up a limited amount, and it takes a day to accumulate again. Don't worry there, Shogun man. Mirko sounded off, spinning rapidly through the air in a circular arc. We'll take some of the heat off of ya. Lunar Crescent. Much to the dismay of several Viacons, they all quickly found themselves being smashed through by the Rabbit Harrow's feet, mainly at their joints and any other exposed parts that their armor plating didn't cover. Come on, Deku, get in the game. Alright. Activating his helmet, Izuku leapt up and performed a mid-air somersault, bringing one for all to 15% for his next move. Praxus, SMAAASSHH. All of a sudden, Deku went blasting forward through the air, creating a large gust of wind behind him that propelled him into a Viacon's midsection foot first. The trooper landed on the ground, injured, but that wasn't to say Izuku didn't hurt from that either. Gah! Ow! 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 Nearby, Marissa had taken cover, but quickly came out the moment she heard Izuku's cries of pain. Deku. Sliding to a halt next to him, the Sector 7 agent removed his helmet and lowered her hands to the leg he was clutching, putting her healing quirk to good use. I swear, it's always you, isn't it? Izuku winced and gave a breathy chuckle. Well, I guess this helped me realize something. And what's that? I need protective leg gear made as soon as possible. Marissa didn't get to quip back at him before even more Viacons came charging, but they found themselves stopped when a certain sound-based heroine got in their way. Plugging her jacks into her wrist speakers, Kyoka knelt down and slammed her hands into the dirt. Not a chance. Heartbeat distortion. The sound waves from her speakers created tremors in the ground that took the Viacons off balance, which is when Scarlet came in next. Now, do it. Pulling out 6 locks of hair from her ponytail, Scarlet knocked them into her crossbow one by one as they stiffened into arrows, shooting the Viacons directly in their optics. With all of them blinded, the cons could do nothing but stumble into one another in a panic, knocking themselves down only to writhe painfully in the dirt. Enjoy gift, lads. Scarlet teased. That's the only one you'll be getting from me. Nice. Kyoka high-fived the sharpshooter. Not bad, Scarlet. Oh, that wasn't even my best shot, Kyoka. Scarlet winked, before pulling another strand of hair out and knocking it into her crossbow. Without even turning around, she slung her weapon back and shot an incoming Viacon straight in the knee, the arrow jamming into its internal mechanisms and making the con trip. Trust me. Duke couldn't help but roll his eyes. PSH, yeah, always gotta show off, don't ya? At least Snake over there ain't bragging about what he's doing. It was only then that the teens saw what the silent commando was doing, and they were amazed. Snake Eyes was swiftly dodging and ducking through everything the Viacons were throwing at him, be it laser fire or swiping at him with their clawed hands. In turn, Snake Eyes was deftly swiping his blade at every joint he could get to, going so fast that the students could only barely process what was happening. By the end of it all, Snake Eyes had made it through his targeted Viacons and slid his sword back into its holster, wherein the cons all collapsed into a heap of dismembered bodies and broken parts, screaming in shock and anguish. The students were left completely flabbergasted, though Bumblebee managed to speak their minds for them. ZRKT, okay, how? Excellent work as always, Snake. Hawk commended, the ninja's actions bringing a brief respite in the battle as the remaining Viacons ran in the opposite direction. Woo, boy, Jazz whistled, impressed with the outcome. That sword must be as sharp as a razor to cut through all that circuitry and armor platen. But Kamakura shook his head. Not entirely. If you notice, Master Snake Eyes specifically targeted their joints, just as many of us have been doing. His technique is what grants him such great focus, which he then converts into strength that flows through his body and into his blade, allowing him to slice through even the thickest of metals. Izuku nodded in understanding. So that's what his quirk is, then. Not a second later and every Joe present was staring at him incredulously, almost as if he had said something weird. What? Kyoka furrowed her brow at him in confusion. No, Izuku. It's like Kamakura said, Snake Eyes' technique is what lets him do all of that. It's a form of active meditation, which he uses to channel chi energy and strengthen his strikes. But this only made Izuku more perplexed. Wait, are you saying that Snake Eyes is able to use another power in addition to his quirk? I mean, I guess that'd make sense. Being able to enhance a strength-enhancing quirk through meditation isn't unheard of, so... Ah, kid, Tiger Claw exclaimed, breaking Izuku out of his muttering ramble. The Tiger Man holstered his laser rifle so that he could point over to his master. Read my furry lips, Snake Eyes does not have a quirk. He doesn't. Izuku slowly craned his head over to Snake Eyes, who simply stood there with his arms crossed. Snake Eyes, you're quirkless. The ninja gave a single nod over to him, and Izuku slumped down flat on his back. He's quirkless, and he managed to dismember at least 8 Viacons with just a sword and his meditation technique. Yeah, I learned this at a young age, kid. Marissa gave Izuku a pat on the shoulder. Snake Eyes is a badass, and don't you forget it. If Izuku was being honest, though, his world had been completely shaken. A quirkless man had just taken down multiple Decepticons in front of his very eyes without any natural superpower to speak of. Just a meditation technique and a sword. The more quirkless people I meet, the more I start questioning if I was just utterly selfish. The green-haired boy thought to himself, clenching his teeth. I may have gotten one for all in the end, but, did I just manage to land the easy way out? Could I have been like Fowler or even Snake Eyes if I had gone down a different path? What if? SHHYOOOM. Ah. Everybody yelped in unison as, from high overhead, Starscream came shooting down and pulled right up at the last minute, transforming in midair and hovering just in front of them all. Not soon after, Barricade also screeched to a halt, doing a flip as he transformed while Frenzy ejected from his chest. Starscream threw his head back with a boisterous laugh. Ahahaha. Well, perhaps I was too quick to judge you, Yo-Joe, people after all. He sneered down to his Viacons with disgust. You all should be ashamed of yourselves. Falling to a simple human blade. If I didn't have more pressing matters, I'd kill you all myself. Still, his primary focus remained on the humans, scanning his optics across the group. Now, who's in charge around here? Hawk, keeping his laser rifle at the reed, narrowed his eyes up at the Seeker commander. That'd be me, General Clayton Abernathy. Most folks call me Hawk. He raised his chin defiantly up at Starscream. And you, visitor, should be careful about how you speak. You've garnered the attention of G.I. Joe, and trust me, you don't want to know what happens to evil that crosses our path. Throwing his head back, Starscream gave a haughty, "Ha. You think I can be intimidated, General?" He pointed down at Hawk with his optics narrowed. Well, think again. You should know that there is a significant difference between taking down a bunch of useless Viacons compared to the Decepticon elite. And we are going to make certain that you all know that by the end of this day. Y'all ain't doing nothing, Screamer. Jazz and Bumblebee brought their weapons out, aiming right at Starscream. We're not gonna let ya hurt. But the Autobot was cut off and Starscream's attention was garnered by another loud laugh, from Mirko. MHA. You don't scare us, Decepti-chump. I bet I could defeat your sorry as with my eyes closed. Mirko, don't, Izuku started, only to be cut off by Starscream. Is that a threat, Earth Woman? Aiming his null ray down at her, Starscream's mouth curled into a superior smirk. Well then, let's test that. Pew 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 he fired off at the heroine, but she leapt up so high that he thought he was seeing things. What? He redirected his arm, but by the time he did, she was already closing in, to the point where she actually landed on his wrist. Ah. Hi. Mirko grinned widely and maliciously. Can ya guess what I'm gonna do next? Starscream swung his arm around violently, even going so far as to swing it against a rock. Get off of me. Get off. Mirko did hop off, but only after he smashed his hand on the rock, causing sparks to fly from his wrist. Ow. Why URK. Lunar landing. Coming in with a double dropkick to Starscream's face, Mirko sent the Seeker toppling over, pushing off his head for a perfect dismount. HMPH. How'd you like that, Mr. Decepticon Elite? With her footprints firmly dented into Starscream's visage, the Decepticon Air Commander began twitching in irritation, his fists clenched at his sides. Enough, this is enough. Returning to a vertical base with a violent jerk, Starscream made everyone back off of him and her spun around, going to his hands and knees with a vengeful expression. I have had it up to here with you humans getting the better of me. This ends today. Barricade. The Decepticon cop pulled out his gun and took aim, with Frenzy doing the same with the small guns on his back. Alright, listen up, humans. It's obvious that we're gonna do this the hard way, so let's get it over with, shall we? Hee, yeah, we're gonna slice and dice you to ribbons. Hee. Frenzy cackled before noticing Izuku on the ground. Oh ho, and what do we have here? The same cowardly little brat who suddenly got all big and tough the moment his friends arrived. He clenched his metal teeth at him. I still owe you one for leaving me broken after that encounter. Izuku's gaze hardened toward the mini-con, picking himself up and putting his helmet back on despite Marissa's protests. Deku, wait, I wasn't finished. It'll have to do, the green-haired boy asserted, keeping his sights locked on Frenzy. I know what you're trying to do, but it won't work. You may have had the advantage before, Frenzy, but this time, I won't hesitate to fight back. As Deku brought full cowling back up, he could see Kyoka out the corner of his eye, smiling proudly at him. Exactly. The earphone jack user stood in solidarity with him. We'll keep fighting. We're not afraid of you, she shot a pointed glare at Starscream. Either of you. Starscream balked at the declaration. Bah, do you think I am intimidated, girl? You humans may be strong, but I do not fear any of you, do you hear? Out of all the Joes there, it was probably the most unexpected one who responded to the Seeker. Oh yeah, stepping out from behind Tiger Claw, Kamakura approached Starscream, much to Kyoka and Izuku's surprise. Well, you will be. I can guarantee you that. Kamakura, Kyoka exclaimed. What are you? But Scarlet put a hand to the perplexed shoulder. Don't worry, lass. He knows what he's doing. Just, prepare yourself to see something unsettling. Meanwhile, Starscream, Barricade and Frenzy all let out boisterous laughs at the red-headed man's declaration, not noticing that Kamakura was in the process of taking his gloves and boots off. Ha ha ha. Oh, now that's rich. Barricade cackled. What, you gonna petrify us with how generic you look? Bahaha. Indeed. Starscream agreed, pointing mockingly at Kamakura. You seem to be the most normal out of everyone here. What hope do you have against us? Despite the derisive comments, however, Kamakura kept a smile on. Oh, trust me, you're in for a few surprises. On that note, the man began to clench his whole body, doubling over while tightening his fists, arms and legs. Growl. The sudden, loud yell made everybody step away from him, giving him some space to do whatever it was he was doing. Guys. Jazz winced. What's happening? Kamakura's quirk is pretty potent. Duke explained. He sometimes needs a minute to get it going. All of a sudden, a pair of long, jagged, black horns jutted out from Kamakura's forehead, spewing green, vicious liquid all over. The students and Autobots gasped in horror, though the Joes weren't as bothered, having seen it before. And, there it is. Duke pointed out. The screaming continues as Kamakura's body began to change drastically, his skin hardening into a thick, green exoskeleton. His fingertips sharpened into deadly claws as, from the back of his wrists, a pair of long, mantis-like forelegs came bursting out, bringing more green liquid with them as they extended out past his elbow. His facial structure also changed drastically, his eyes rolling into the back of his head and growing out into a pair of massive, orange, bug-like eyes. A pair of mandibles extended out from his mouth and his teeth sharpened into fangs, his back growing a black carapace that contained a pair of beetle-like wings. Finally, his legs bent backward at the knee and his heels extended out, becoming grasshopper-like with two clawed toes on each. By the end of the transformation, Kamakura had changed into a horrific hybrid bug creature, his mandibles clicking and clattering as he spoke with a new, reverberant tone. So, how do y'all like me now? He asked Starscream, while the stag beetle horns on his head seemed to crackle with green electricity. With the Autobots, Izuku, Kyoka, and even the Decepticons stunned into silence, there was really only one response that Starscream could give. What the FRAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAA Far away from the main conflict, Shadow Striker had perched herself in a solitary hiding space upon a lone rock outcropping, keeping her sights on the battle and waiting for a good opportunity to pick off any Autobots. Unfortunately, they were all constantly moving everywhere and the Viacons were only getting in the way, meaning she couldn't get a clear shot. Thankfully, though, the group that Starscream was with were all staying perfectly still, so that meant it would be easy pickings. I will start with the insectoid freak. Shadow Striker took aim at the newly transformed Kamakura's head and, with a sadistic grin, pulled the trigger. Click, nothing. Click, still nothing. Click, 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 quah. The sniper pulled her head away from the sights and investigated her rifle, only seeing now that a red light was flashing on the side. A quasar jam. But how? I tuned it up the other day. Oh, yeah. That's probably me. A gasp escaped Shadow Striker's throat and she whirled around, pulling out her laser machete as a substitute weapon. However, what she was met with was not what she expected. A lone woman with long, black hair and donned in a red ninja outfit stood behind her, leaving the femme confused. How did you find me? Who are you? She lifted up her rifle for emphasis. And how did you sabotage my weapon? The kunoichi raised a single finger. In reverse order, your weapon stopped working thanks to my quirk taking affect. I have the power to alter outcomes, or change someone's luck, as some would put it. Hence why your weapon was jammed. She placed a hand to her chest. As for my name, I go by Jinx. And for how I found you, well, Jinx pointed up to the sky and Shadow Striker craned her head up, where she was met with an unfortunate side. Ack, merde. The assassin raised her machete just in time to counter the incoming Windblade, who had transformed and took out her own energy blade to strike at her. Well, Shadow Striker. Windblade glowered at her. We meet again. And it will be the last, city speaker. Shadow Striker kicked her leg up and pushed Windblade back, allowing her room to raise her hand and launch a projectile. Let's see how you handle, pow, ow. Much to her chagrin, the energy net launcher exploded out of her arm and tangled it all up, forcing her to drop her rifle entirely. Jinx put a hand to her lips in faux surprise. Oops. Sorry, did I do that? Now thoroughly upset, Shadow Striker let out a scream and swung her machete down at Jinx, who expertly dodged out of the way. Get back here you little, oof. But she couldn't even give chase when, from out of nowhere, a bright blue light slammed right into her side, bringing her down to the ground. And then, she heard a certain voice. Sorry, love, but you need to pay more attention. The purple femme whipped her head up, her lips parting in stunned silence. She knew that she had been on Earth for a while, but it was still rather jarring for Shadow Striker. Flare up, she whispered. The Autobot scout narrowed her optics, placing her hand on her hip. Oh, so you actually remember my name. I thought Shockwave deleted that from your programming, too. Before Shadow Striker could say anything else, though, Flare Up shook her head. But that doesn't matter anymore anyways. You have a lot to answer for, love, just not to me. Moving out of the way, Flare made room for RC to come walking up to the Decepticon sniper, her swords drawn and with Jinx and Quick Kick flanking her. With an absolutely spiteful glare, RC stomped down on Shadow Striker's midsection, making her cough up a bit of energon before taking one of her swords and bringing the tip to her enemy's chin. You know, I could do several things to you right now. RC started, not allowing Shadow Striker to break optic contact for a moment. I could slice your head off your neck and be done with it, or even plunge my blade into your cold, hardened spark, but no. You must face justice for what you did. And once we get back to Cybertron. If you can get back at all. Shadow Striker interjected. Megatron still controls the planet, you know. Unless your small resistance can ultimately overthrow him, you will be returning me to a Cybertron where Megatron's word is law. Which is why I'm going to keep you imprisoned here on Earth until we can overthrow him. RC pressed her foot down harder on Shadow Striker, eliciting a pained grunt from the assassin. Now shut up. For every Autobot you killed, including Tailgate, I'm bringing you in, huh? Rumble rumble rumble, the ground beneath the ladies began to shake violently, throwing many off balance. Flare Up was on her guard, but even she couldn't guess what was going on. What's happening? Kenzie could feel it just below, though, the rumbling was growing closer by the second, and it was fast. Everybody, move. The group followed her cue just as whatever it was came blasting out of the rocky terrain, sending large chunks of debris flying in all directions. To the surprise of everyone, though, it wasn't what any of them could have expected. Flying straight out of the new hole in the ground, was a certain green helicopter, and she had some sort of drilling device attached under the cockpit of her vehicle mode. Ha ha ha. Hello, ladies, Swift exclaimed as she transformed and landed on her feet, the drill having moved onto her right arm. So, did y'all like my entrance? I'd say my new partner here really helped make it extra special. Swift. Windblade brought up her sword and went in to strike the lieutenant, but Swift simply raised her arm, blocking the blade with her drill, which then glowed with the same green energy as her hands. Step off, Toots. The drill spoke, making Windblade gasp as it spun around and knocked her back with a powerful blow. The drill, which in reality was a tiny mining vehicle, detached from Swift and transformed, hopping up on her shoulder and leaning against her helm. We're running the show round, air now. The mini-con said, jerking a thumb to himself as Swift nodded. No, no. Windblade shot up to her feet, glowering at Swift as she helped Shadow strike her out of her predicament. You corrupted another mini-con. All that did was make the copter bot scoff back. PFF'd. Corrupt is a strong word, Windy. Besides, you got it all wrong. Once Shadow Striker was standing again, Swift reached up and pat her new partner on the shoulder. Drill bit here. He actively chose to side with us. He called out to me from inside his panel, after all. Drill bit all but confirmed that. Yes ma'am. Our mutual love of destruction really sped the process along, and, let me tell ya, the boys, gonna get a kick out of her as much as I do, I guarantee it. The boys. RC uttered. Swift sent her opponents a toothy grin, raising her closed hand up to show them. Yep. She opened her fingers, revealing two glowing mini-con panels in her palm. The boys. Incomin'. Drill bit bellowed. Left side. Spinning out of the way, Swift managed to actually dodge flare up before she could swipe the panels away, closing her hand back up. Nope. Not happening, chickie. The lieutenant denied. These little dudes are just itching to cause some mayhem. And you know what? So am I. She tightened her grip on the panels and, before any Autobot could stop her, an eruption of green light shined over the whole area, signaling the mini-con's awakening. Once the light faded, the two new little bots were revealed, though Swift had to set them down given their combined weight. Both of them were heavily armored and just as bulky for their size, just like Drillbit, though in contrast to his vibrant red, both of them were quite dark in color with bright pops of yellow detail. The mini-con on the left was mostly black and his right arm was entirely yellow, along with his waist, upper legs, feet, and his dome-shaped helmet. He had a green visor and silver faceplate, and both of his legs were actually the treads of his vehicle mode. His left arm, however, was very different from his left. It was gray and he had no hand, instead replaced with a massive, yellow bucket wheel that somewhat resembled a circular saw blade. Onto his right, the other mini-con had a much blockier build, probably the most heavily armored out of all three. His vehicle mode treads were on the sides of his legs and hanging off his shoulders, and the large turret on his back indicated that he must have transformed into a tank of some sort. Though instead of a single barrel, there were two long, yellow barrels sticking up behind his square-shaped helm. Said helmet had a prominent forehead crest and a blue visor, which was the only pop of color on him besides his yellow waist and upper legs. GRRMPPH, the tank mini-con grumbled, putting a hand to his head as he came online. Where are we? He said in a surprisingly deep voice. I dunno, boss, said the bucket wheel mini-con, his voice much higher and a bit more nasally than the others. Feels like we've been asleep for a while. Ha. We're right about that, landslide. Drillbit shouted, dropping down from Swift's shoulder to raise his arms in celebration. Welcome back, boys. He gave a salute over to the tank mini-con. Dueler. Boss. Hope we're wide awake, cuz we've got some destroyin' to do. Dueler, now fully awake, did a double take along with landslide. Ha, Drillbit, that you. The three mini-cons all came in and bashed their fists together, laughing together at their reunion. Ha, fantastic. Been hoppin' to get out of those panels fair a while. So, I'm guessing we've got you to thank fair that. Drillbit shook his head. Not just me, boss. Know ya might not like this at first, but trust me, I've found us a good one. He raised his drill arm, pointing up to their new Decepticon partner. Boys, meet Swift. She's a feisty con who's got an addiction to destruction. Hiya, Chief. Swift sent a salute down to Dueler, who didn't seem too impressed. Hey, reporting for duty. With a sour expression, Dueler glowered at his subordinate. Drill bit, what the pit are you doing gallivanting with a freakin' bulk? The partners winced at the term, with Drill bit letting out a groan. Should have known it wouldn't be this easy. Boss, listen, you know exactly how I feel about big bots, Drill. Dueler admonished with a pointed finger. They ain't nothing but trouble. But Swift's different, boss. Drill bit insisted, defending the femme vehemently. I swear, she's got the same passion for breaking and destroying stuff as we do. Give her a chance, and I know we'll get what we all want. The idea seemed to excite Landslide quite a bit. We can go back to doing what we do best. No more Autobots trying to get in our way. He turned to Dueler, who still seemed hesitant. Boss, this is the chance we've been waiting for. Another grumble passed through Dueler's vocal processor, giving a scrutinizing look up to Swift. Alright, listen up, lady. I just wanna know one thing and one thing only. He pointed to her and asked, can ya at least blow up an entire structure in less than a minute? Of course I can, Swift proclaimed confidently with a flex of her arm. I can bring any kind of building down in seconds. You have my word. Dueler huffed, somewhat impressed with her bravado. HMPH, okay, rookie. I'll give ya a chance. Besides, he stepped around to glower at the Autobots, who were standing defensively in front of Jinx and Quick Kick. It's better than going back to those idiots who shoved us into those panels in the first place. Windblade tried to reason with him, though. But it was for your safety. Roller said. Roller's a fraggin', Patsy. Dueler roared defiantly. We shoulda stayed in, fought in the war ourselves, but no. Our so-called leader decided to chicken out. Well, guess what? Time to change our tune. Destruction mini-cons. Powerlink. On cue, the trio all transformed, with Dueler entering tank mode and Drill Bit going into his mining drill vehicle mode. Landslide's alternate mode was a tiny bucket wheel excavator, his arms making up the apparatus that kept said wheel aloft. Then, all at once, they flew up into the air and began attaching to Swift. Drill Bit and Landslide linked up to her arms while Dueler linked onto her upper back, his turret swiveling around and the two barrels lowering down on either side of her head. Once they were all linked, a massive surge of power could be seen flowing through Swift's very being, the mini-con's weapon modes all taking on her characteristic green glow. Oh ho ho. Now we're talking, the lieutenant shouted, grinning maniacally toward the opposing Autobots. So, ladies, who wants the first taste of Swift, in super mode? Chapter 60, Rocks Fall, Everybody Flies. So far, the battle in the Rockies had been going, not terrible, but not exactly great either. At least, from the perspective of those still at Autobot HQ. Red Alert, May, Longarm, Roller and the rest of the mini-cons were all gathered at the main computer, watching the holographic screen intently as the Sky Spy continued to capture the conflict at multiple angles. The imagery flying by could be a bit disorienting, but they still managed to make out everything that was happening. Optimus and Shoto were fending off Skybite rather well, Bulkhead and Springer were practically plowing through Viacons with little issue, with aid from Roadblock and Wild Bill respectively, and Strongarm was successfully leading Momo, Edgeshot and Setsuna against a small group of Viacons. Still, there were several areas of the battle where things weren't going so well. Mina had joined Ajiro, Tetsu and Denki against another squad of cons, with Crust, Gang Orca, Sideswipe and Sunstreaker leading the charge. However, things were taking a downward turn for them as several Viacon jets came in from above, bombarding them with laser fire with Thundercracker and Skywarp at the head of the pack. Furthermore, Red Alert could see that Blastwave and Flatline were quickly approaching Bulkhead's group, meaning they'd have more trouble soon. And of course, there was what was happening with Swift, the Decepticon lieutenant having retrieved two other mini-cons and was now power-linked with them, giving her a super mode, as she had dubbed it. Scrap, I was afraid it, this. From the back, Side had spoken up, his fellow council bots all perturbed by the sight. Of all the teams she could have come across, it just had to be the Destruction Mini-Cons. I take it that's a bad thing, right? May questioned. You're darn right, it's bad. Checkpoint affirmed, waving his hand in front of his face. Dueler and his lot are nothing but troublemakers, causing messes everywhere on Cybertron even before the war broke out. Anti-Blaze clenched his fist. It was all we could do to apprehend them and bring them with us aboard the Ark, for their own good. He craned his head over to Roller, who simply kept his head down and his arms crossed. Let's just say that Dueler doesn't exactly have much respect for Roller. And he never did. Roller affirmed, shaking his head. We never saw eye to eye on most cases, but leaving Cybertron was the last straw for him. Ultimately, we managed to bring them in, but even with his hatred of bigger Cybertronians, it doesn't surprise me that he'd willingly join the Decepticons at this point. Well, what do we do? Highwire asked. Should we get down there and help? Grinder was more than ready to agree with his leader. Yeah, those guys could be in deep trouble. They need safeguard. Despite her trepidation, Surshak was quick to concur with her brothers. Indeed, I know that Lady Abara isn't down there with them, but she would be rightly upset if either Tetsu or Setsuna were to be injured, or worse. She looked up to Red Alert imploringly. Please, Red Alert, we must go in. Now hold on. Red interrupted, raising a hand down to the mini-cons. Before any of you go flying off the handle, keep in mind that your size and stature don't lend well to massive war zones like what's happening over there. He lowered his arm as the smaller bots kept listening. Of course, your abilities are great, but you could also be at risk to a Decepticon coming to snatch you at any point. To say that I'm hesitant to send you in is an understatement. However, Roller wasn't about to back down. Then send us right into the thick of it, where the larger bots are fighting. He jogged and leapt up to the computer console, typing in a command that made the Sky Spy turn back to Sideswipe and Sunstraker's group. Look here, those guys are being bombarded by airstrikes, so sending myself and the street action team with Prime's trailer there would be the best place to start. Scythe briefly transformed into his Osprey helicopter mode to fly himself up next to his leader, going back to robot mode to point towards Strongarm's group. Yeah, and, have US bridge over to the cadet. We're all armed up and, ready to take on Swift. He nodded down to his teammates, who both gave him a thumbs up. The destruction team ain't the only sad sacks who can make a, super mode, out of themselves, hee hee. Red Alert hummed at this, thinking it over. But then May finally put in her own 2 cents. Red, I know it's a risk, but it's one we've gotta take. She put up 3 fingers. We've already lost 3 mini-cons to the Decepticons, but we can't let them take that Energon. Worse yet, if that battle winds up getting too close to the Energon, the entire Rocky Mountain range and our allies will be blown sky high. Red Alert concluded, giving a short sigh. May, once again, you make a surprisingly logical point. It's what I do. The inventor beamed with a salute. All right, mini-cons. Red called out, waving his hand out toward the ground bridge. Be ready to roll out. Remember, no diverting too far from our Autobot allies. Do what you can for them while also making sure yourselves are protected as well. All of the mini-cons saluted back to him as well. Understood, Red Alert. Highwire acknowledged. And thank you. Once Roller had retrieved Prime's trailer, towing the comparatively large box on his own hitch, he and the other mini-cons gathered on the ground bridge platform. Alright, so we're all clear on the plan. Street action team, load into the trailer. We'll see about giving the Decepticons a bit of a surprise with it. Doing as they were told, Highwire, Surshak and Grinder filed in one by one, closing the door behind them. And Scythe, best of luck against the destruction team. Aye, sir. Scythe, Anti-Blaze and Checkpoint all saluted back. We'll see to it that they learn a lesson they won't soon forget. Once both teams had been sent to their respective locations, Red Alert let out a deep sigh, silently hoping for the best. It's a long shot, to say the least. The Viacon's numbers are massive compared to our forces. Of course, our human allies are surprisingly strong, but something to turn the tide would be. BZZZT asterisk BZZZT asterisk BZZZT asterisk BZZZT. Red was jolted out of his thoughts as the base's warning systems went off, the alarm blaring through the whole place. Red Alert, May exclaimed from the computer. It's a Red Alert. The medic felt particularly peeved hearing that, but wasn't about to berate her at the moment. Unwanted wordplay aside, what in the pit is going on now? He ran over to the console and began inputting commands, silently praying it wasn't the base's perimeter sensors. We certainly don't need anyone discovering this place at a time like this. Thankfully, it wasn't the perimeter sensors as he had feared. No, it was much more worrisome. The base's systems had picked up on, of all things, an approaching Cybertronian signal in the upper atmosphere, leaving Red Alert baffled. What? A Cybertronian life sign, and it's descending toward the planet at high speed. Is it Autobot or Decepticon? May questioned. I can't say for certain. Red shook his head. There's no indicator, nor can I connect to any comm signal from this mysterious individual either. Noting this, Red Alert switched over, intent on calling Optimus. Base to Optimus, do you read me? Come in, Optimus. Unfortunately, all he got was static and not much else, causing him to slam his fist against the console. Blast. Too much energon interference where they are. I can't warn them like this. And we've already sent the others through. Longarm exclaimed, throwing his hands up his head in a panic. Oh, what are we going to do? What can we do? Oh, this isn't going how we were. Clank. Ow. Geez, what was that for? May had resoundingly hit Longarm upside the head with a wrench, only to then grab him by the shoulders. Pull yourself together, man. We're not out of the woods yet. I'm sure that the Autobots and our friends will pull through. Right, Red. Though his answer was less emphatic, the medic nodded all the same. Yes, May, you're right. We need to have faith in the others that they can overcome the Decepticons. His gaze zeroed in on the incoming signal, however, feeling a bit of apprehension in his core. Still, let us hope that whoever this signal belongs to is more friend than foe. Back in the Rockies, things hadn't been going too well for Kirishima's group. Granted, it hadn't started out that way. Himself, Tetsu, Mina, Denki, and Setsuna had all gathered up with one another, their group being led by Gang Orca, Crust, Sideswipe and Sunstreaker. And thus far, they had been able to overwhelm the Viacon's ground forces fairly handily. Unfortunately, that all changed very abruptly when the jet Viacons came into play. An entire armada of them had quickly dove in and began bombarding them with laser fire, forcing the team to quickly make a tactical retreat behind a massive rock outcropping for cover. They were all fairly tough, but none of them had any easy way to reach the jets. Sideswipe and Sunstreaker were laying on covering fire from where they were hunkered down, but the twins were lamenting being pinned in such a way. Gah, scrap. Sunstreaker cursed. If one of them would just get low enough, we could pull out our patented jet judo on him. I'm pretty sure they've caught on to that by now, bro. Sideswipe grimaced, peeking out again briefly to fire another few rounds. Sad to say, we might have become predictable. The humans flinched as the boulder they were hiding behind got hit again, shaking the entire ground in the process. Gah, well, can't we do something? Denki exclaimed. Otherwise, we're gonna be here for the entire, oh god. What? Sunstreaker spun around, not liking the sound of that. Charge bolt, what's going, Primus dammit. There were now several ground-based Viacons driving straight at them from the back, all of them bringing out their roof-mounted blasters. Guys, get ready to run. Gang Orca took umbrage with that. Sunstreaker, aye. Orca, take the kids and run. Sideswipe asserted, his shoulder-mounted missile moving on its own to take aim. We'll hold the line. No way. Ajiro hardened his entire as much as he could, not intent on abandoning his friends. We're not just gonna abandon you. We're gonna fight. Right, real steel. Tetsu followed suit, his metal body shining as his quirk was pushed to the extreme. You bet your ass, Red Riot. Let's freaking go. Mina summoned 2 globs of acid in her hands, not ready to back down either. Right, a real wrecker doesn't run. I'm sticking with you. Next to her, Setsuna began to separate her body into several pieces, floating up into the air all around them in a sort of protective barrier. I'm still not sure how effective my quirk will be against these guys, she admitted. But if there's anything I've learned over the course of the internship, it's that a real hero isn't afraid to take chances if it means saving the day. These idiots are gonna be in for a super shock. Denki emphasized, his entire body beginning to course with his signature electricity. About 3 million volts worth, to be specific. Off to the side, both Crust and Gang Orca stared at their protégés with pride, the former wearing a wide grin and nodding in approval. We taught him good, Gang. We taught him real good. The Orca man gave a simple hum in agreement. Despite themselves, Sideswipe and Sunstreaker couldn't help but be moved by their friend's resilience. You guys are idiots, the red Autobot choked out, putting on a wild smirk. And I mean that in the nicest way possible. Yeah, you're our idiots, Sunstreaker accentuated, cocking his blaster to charge it up again. By that point, the jet Viacons had circled around and began another descent on them as well, so the yellow bot only felt it necessary to say, whether we get through this or not, it's been a pleasure fighting with you all. Now let's go. Till all are one. On his cue, the group all began charging at the Viacon horde approaching them, all roaring in unison, only for something unexpected to happen. Cutting off their path, a ground bridge opened up, allowing not just the Street Action Minicon team come through, but also Roller hauling Prime's trailer. The Minicon leader unhooked himself, transformed, and then called out. Combat deck. Transform and activate force field. Following his command, the trailer changed into its battle platform mode, its turret raising up from inside to take aim and start blasting at the Viacons while the force field was cast over the whole area. With the group now protected, Roller hopped up onto the combat deck and placed his hands to his hips. Haha, right on time. No thanks are necessary guys, it's all part of the, you okay? Much to the Minicon's confusion, the students, heroes and even the Lambo twins were absolutely slack-jawed and gobsmacked, as if they couldn't believe what had just happened. Sunstreaker's shoulders slumped down and he put a hand to his helm. Well, that took the wind out of my sails. Roller, what the frag? Sideswipe threw his hands up, clearly irritated. We were just about to go into battle all, sacrifice for the greater good, here. The teens didn't seem too happy about this either. Yeah dude, seriously. Ajiro clenched his sharpened teeth. I was psyched up and now I feel totally bummed. We're sorry. Highwire apologized, though he and the others were still quite confused. We just saw that you all were being overwhelmed back in base, so we thought you could use some backup. Mina let out a groan and dropped her acid blobs to the ground, doing a double facepalm afterward. Roller, guys, we appreciate the thought, but maybe get here a bit sooner so that we don't hype ourselves up with the whole, true heroism, moment. Setsuna brought herself back together with an irritated grimace. Yeah, pretty sure the battle was gonna be pretty epic. Grinder and his team were feeling pretty bad at this point. Aw, man, sorry guys. But perhaps there will still be an opportunity to do so. Sir Shock encouraged. After all, the combat deck can't possibly take out all of these Viacons on their own. THOOM**. Ah. The group let out a collective gasp as Skywarp came crashing down onto the force field, sending a ripple through the barrier. Though the fact that he wasn't able to break it entirely left him irritant, the black and purple Seeker taking out his shotguns. Hey, oh please, do fight back. Skywarp requested, aiming point blank at the barrier. It'll make your deaths all the more satisfying, bam bam bam. The shots rang out one by one, exploding against the force field and severely weakening it with each blow. The kids covered their ears while Crust and Gang Orca grumbled at the Decepticon, the former thrusting out his hands. Hey, knock that crap off. Crust let loose a barrage of his shields into Skywarp's lower leg, some even piercing through his armor while making him stagger back. And have some of this. Graw-ow. Gang Orca charged outside the force field and slammed himself right into Skywarp's wounded leg, taking the Seeker down. Still, Skywarp quickly reminded everyone that he wasn't alone. Ow, Thundercracker. I need some heat taken off me. I'm on it. Spinning around, the team were met with the sight of the blue Seeker dive-bombing onto them, transforming and slamming feet first onto the force field. By this point, the barrier was beginning to sputter and power down, leading Thundercracker to smirk. So it's got a set amount of damage it can take. Should be no problem, he raised his hand and called out, sonar. Runway. Jetstorm. From the cloudy sky, the Air Assault Minicon team dove down, flying directly toward Thundercracker's hand. Oh no you don't. Sideswipe shouted, tacking the Decepticon away and causing the Minicons to miss. Hey. Runway and her teammates whirled around in midair, flying in to help their partner. Get off of him, you, ah. But, much to her shock, the street action mini-cons all jumped on top of them, bringing them down to the rocky ground where they were forced to transform. Ow, you idiots. Runway began grappling with High Wire, with Sonar giving chase to Surshock while Jetstorm and Grinder threw hands. Do you have any idea how pointless this is? Not really, no. High Wire denied. But if we can't convince you guys to come back to the good side, then we're gonna hinder you from helping the bad side as much as possible. Jetstorm groaned at the sentiment. Primus, you guys really are scrap for brains. Grinder threw another punch, managing to hit him in the chest. Yeah, well, it's better than being a bunch of mind-controlled puppets. Exactly. Surshock agreed, sliding to a halt in order to trip up her pursuer. And one day, we will make you see that. Grah. Sonar was able to avoid falling, though, transforming into his aircraft mode before ramming straight into Surshock. This is pointless. You wanna go one-on-one? Then let's do it. Runway. Jetstorm. A devious smirk appeared on the Minicon leader's face. Good call, Sonar. Jetstorm. Yeah, I'm getting there. Grabbing Grinder's next punch, Jetstorm transformed into his tiny Concorde mode and rammed into him as well, jetting straight towards Sonar and Surshock. How ya enjoy this, bro, because I sure will. Yes, we all will. Runway changed into her own jet mode and did the same with High Wire, the 6 mini-cons all colliding with one another in a massive pulse of pure energy. Once the resulting light died down, both teams were revealed to have combined, Safeguard forcibly so, resulting in the mini-con combiner being disoriented. Oog, where are we? You're in our world now, Safeguard. Floating up into the air of their own volition, the Cybercaliber swung its glowing blade down in a long arc, intent on splitting Safeguard in half, but then, something unexpected happened. Flying in from out of the blue, Setsuna's upper half came into the battle, carrying Tetsu with her to make a stand against the sentient sword. Real steel. This is your stop. Thanks, Lizardy. Tetsu acknowledged before being thrown into the thick of things, using both of his metal hands to catch the incoming strike from the Cybercaliber. Grah. No way, not happening, guys. What? No, stop this. The air assault team shouted, jerking themselves around to release Tetsu's grip. This is not your battle, human. Get out of our way, or suffer the consequences. But Real Steel didn't budge, remaining firm no matter how hard they lurched. Gah. Yeah, about that, ya kinda lost my sympathy when ya tried to kill my pals. Well, guess what? I'm not gonna let ya. He snapped his head around and shouted, Safeguard. MHA. Safeguard perked their head up, gasping at the sight. Tetsu. Go, you must leave. And let you guys get destroyed. Setsuna asked, floating her upper half down next to the combiner's head. Hey, as if, we're not leaving you guys hanging. Setsuna, you too. From behind, Denki, Eijiro and Mina all came in as well, all of the students regaining their fighting feeling. Yeah, and don't forget us. The electrification user said with a thumbs up. Like I said, I'm ready to charge these Decepti creeps. Eijiro practically went barreling towards Sideswipe, who was still in the midst of his struggle with Thundercracker. Yo, Sides. Red Riot shouted as he hardened up again. Save some for me. And me. Mina went in and approached another band of Viacons, their numbers significantly whittled down thanks to the combat deck. Surprisingly, though, many of the cons all flinched at the sight of her. Oh, you remember ME, don't you? The pink girl realized, grinning wildly as she brought more acid into her hands. Well, who wants a piece of me first, huh? All at once, the Viacons screamed in terror and fled, much to Skywarp's chagrin. Hey, get back here you cowards. Growling beneath his breath, he rolled onto his stomach, kicking Crust and Gang Orca in the process. Grah, I've had it up to here with you pesky organics and your damn quirks. Bringing his shotguns out, he aimed directly for Mina and let loose a volley of blasts, taking her off guard. She was given no time to move out of the way, but thankfully, she didn't need to. Safeguard, now back to their senses, leapt in and activated their own force field, causing the lasers to ricochet off harmlessly into the air. Then allow us to give you something else to be annoyed by. They exclaimed. Haha, alright, Tetsu laughed. Nice work, Safega, ow. Unfortunately, taking his eyes away from the cybercaliber was costly, as Thundercracker managed to get back to his feet. Sideswipe had been tossed aside, and the Blue Seeker was able to retrieve his mini-con weapon without hindrance. He lifted the sword and narrowed his optics at Tetsu, still hanging on to the end of it. "I suggest you let go, human. For your own sake." But Real Steel wasn't about to back down. "Oh, sure, and then I'll just surrender while I'm at it," he shot back sarcastically. "Yeah, fat chance, square head." Thundercracker sneered, lifting the blade and Tetsu high into the air. "I warned you, ah." Before he could do anything, though, he gasped as Setsuna's upper half floated directly in front of him, taking him by surprise. "Hey, wanna see something cool?" she snapped at him. "I'm afraid of what your definition of cool is," Thundercracker admitted. That made Setsuna grin wildly. "It's this." All at once, every single body part on the green-haired girl began to pop off of her, separating at each individual joint. Fingers went flying, her head hurtled right into Thundercracker's face, and to top it all off, even her hair, eyes, nose, mouth and ears all detached, the parts spinning wildly around as she went. Ooga booga booga. Yaha. Effectively spooked, Thundercracker stumbled away from Setsuna, only to be tripped up by Sideswipe. Tetsu tuck and rolled as he landed, sliding up next to Ajiro. "Haha. Nice one, lizardy. Thanks." Setsuna reattached her fingers and hand, giving a thumbs up. "Now go kick his butt." "Gladly." Sideswipe obliged, charging up his rifle. "Boys, let's do this." Ajiro and Tetsu roared in approval as they all charged a Thundercracker, though the Seeker was getting back to a vertical base fairly quickly. Across the way, Sunstreaker, Safeguard, Mina, Denki, Gang Orca and Crust were staring down their own opponent, though Skywarp was definitely not amused by what was happening. "This is so fragging humiliating," he crossed his arms and activated his powers. "Let's see handle this." In the blink of an eye, Skywarp disappeared, but Chargebolt had an inkling of what he was going to do. "Safeguard," he shouted. "Cover everyone." The mini-con combiner wasted no time in obliging, allowing Denki to build up his lightning. Sure enough, Skywarp reappeared and was about to set off his death barrage, but was instead met with an absolutely massive discharge. Indiscriminate shock, 3 million volts. The only thing that Skywarp and any remaining Viacons could see was a blinding yellow light, and had a sudden tingly feeling that he knew was only a prelude for what was about to happen. Oh, holy, scraw AAAAAPPP. The black and purple Seeker writhed in absolute anguish as the electricity coursed through him, short-circuiting his systems and leaving him in stasis lock, dropping to the ground with a massive thud. The other Viacons followed suit, their visors shutting down. Once it was all over, Denki stopped and stood motionless, all while his team celebrated the victory. "Woohoo! Nice one, Kaminari." Mina applauded. "Yes, very well done, Chargebolt." Gang Orca praised, walking up behind the young man and giving him a pat on the shoulder. "I see our training has done wonders for your power output. You should be proud, Chargebolt." It was only then that Denki's head moved up, allowing the others to see his zonked-out expression. The group deadpanned all at once. "Well, guess he needs more training to handle 3 million. Sunstreaker deduced. "If Kyoko were here, she'd definitely have some sort of quip ready." Mina uttered, watching as Denki went around giving 2 thumbs up. "Wonder how she and the others are doing, anyway." Little did the pink girl know that Kyoko was still trying to process what she had just seen. She'd seen quite a few different quirks of all types in her time, be they subtle, outlandish and just plain strange. However, for Kamakura, this was probably the first ever time she could label a quirk as genuinely upsetting to see. Not for the fact that it was underwhelming or anything, no, it was anything but that. Instead, it was upsetting, for her stomach. She had just watched the red-headed man who she'd been living under the same roof with for the last week change from a 5 feet 8 inches relatively handsome dude, into an 8-foot-tall, green insectoid creature with large orange eyes, stag beetle horns, mantis forelimbs, and grasshopper legs, which was where the extra 2.5 feet largely came from. And it was. Ew. Frenzy grimaced, staring in horror as green, gloppy goo continued to fall off of Kamakura where his insect parts had emerged. "That is disgusting. And that's saying something, coming from me." "What?" The absolute slag, Barricade shouted. You humans keep getting grosser and grosser every day I'm on this fragging planet. Kyoka pursed her lips, hating what she was about to say before it even left her mouth. As weird as it is to agree with a Decepticon, yeah, I'm at a loss. Kamakura, what the hell? Why didn't you tell me about this? The insect creature that was Kamakura had to step around in order to look at her, moving as if he was on stilts. Ah, yeah, sorry about that. He apologized, rubbing his clawed hand on the back of his armored neck. I was saving this for your last day with us, but I guess now's as good a time as any. The Perplet had no clue how to respond to that at first. I guess I'm surprised, at least. It's quite the noteworthy quirk, that's for sure. Jazz muttered. ZRKT, Attack of the Killer Creeps. Bumblebee announced through his radio. ZRKT, coming to a theater near you. ZKRT, just watch out for the ZRKT, IIIIIEEE. On the flip side, Starscream was less surprised and more repulsed. AAAUGH. Kill it. Raising his null ray, the Seeker Commander blasted down at Kamakura, but the Joe craned his neck back up to Starscream. Then and there, much to Kyoka and Izuku's shock, from between Kamakura's stag beetle horns came a bolt of green lightning that shot straight up, colliding with the null blast and causing an explosion, which sent Starscream reeling back. Excuse me, sir. Kamakura's voice chattered, his mandibles clicking together threateningly. We're trying to have a conversation. I will get to you in a minute. How the Izuku was completely stunned and bewildered by what just happened. The man who he'd just seen transform into a bug monster, had also shot emerald lightning out from his head. Kamakura, how did you do that? HM, Tiger Claw chortled, crossing his arms as he walked up next to Izuku. You're supposedly the big quirk expert around here, Izuku. I would have thought you'd figured that out yourself. He raised a clawed finger to the boy. After all, if you've studied quirks, then you know how most of them come about, right? The greenette nodded, though he was still processing it all in his brain. Well, yes. Most people inherit quirks from their parents, usually only one. Though if the parents' quirks are compatible enough, sometimes they mix together to make one really quirk, like Kachan's. He snapped his head back toward Kamakura. But, how in the heck does an insect quirk and an electricity quirk even mix? Budo shook his head. They shouldn't, but that's where Kamakura is unique. He's in the 5% of people who've managed to inherit both of his parents' quirks. So essentially, he has two quirks. Izuku finished. Bingo. The insect man affirmed. We've got a winner, though the trade-off to that is that I can't have one without using the other. He gestured down to his body. If I want to use my electric powers, I've gotta be in my insect form. So as a result, I've settled on calling my double quirk, Lightning Bug. Izuku's eyes lit up in sheer amazement. That is so cool. For her part, however, Mirko was still puzzled by the double quirk, wondering why it sounded so familiar to her. Lightning and insect powers, her eyes darted between the various insect parts on him as well. Stag beetle, mantis and grasshopper. Kuwagata, Kamakiri, Bata. I swear, I've heard something like this before. She growled and hit her forehead in frustration. Grr. Think, brain. Barricade stomped the ground, growing impatient. Hey, if you're done with the exposition, can we get back to the actual fighting? Frenzy. Let's tear that bug to ribbons. Ya took the words right out of my mouth, Barricade. Asterisk WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHKT asterisk Frenzy leapt up into Barricade's hand, transforming into his saw mode and immediately started up, the blade spinning rapidly as Barricade closed in. Time to be slice and diced, ya freak of nature. If I had a nickel for every time I've heard that. Kamakura lamented with a shake of his head before waving his arm at the group, ushering them to get away. Everyone, stay at a safe distance. I'm gonna unleash the lightning swarm. The Joes led Izuku, Kyoka, Mirko and Marissa away as Kamakura raised his fists up high, beginning to collect a significant amount of electrical energy in his stag beetle horns. Gra triple A og. What is he doing? Starscream got to his feet and charged in, not wanting to find out. Stop him before he does. Chium 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 chium, but it was too late. Just as Starscream and Barricade had gotten within 10 feet of the mutated man, several arcs of green lighting shot out from his horns, blasting out in all directions and forcing the Decepticons back. The bolts arced up into the air and, much to Izuku and Kyoka's astonishment, actually started taking a defined form. They weren't exactly solid forms, but they had shape to them. Specifically, they were all the spitting image of Kamakura. He had created lightning-based copies of himself, and there were at least 30 of them in total, all high up in the air. "Why am I not surprised?" Jazz said, mostly to himself as he placed a hand to his helm. "Yep, definitely familiar," Mirko resolved, only to clutch her head between her hands. "Now why can't I remember it?" Starscream, though, wasn't impressed. "Huh, you think a bunch of incorporeal clones can stop, zap asterisk ow. Zap zap, gah, ouch, stop it." The clones were all zipping down and going straight for his and Barricade's exposed joints, along with any other chinks in their armor. Though for what reason, Starscream didn't know. "What is your goal here, creature?" Zap. Ouch. If Kamakura could smile at this point, he would've. "Oh, you'll find out. Kekiki." Now, he threw his head back and shouted, "Lightning swarm." Then, all at once, the lightning clones all went darting around, almost too fast to see as they attacked Starscream and Barricade at every angle. The Decepticon duo tried to mount a counter-attack, but found out that the clones couldn't be stopped thanks to their intense speed. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't get a pin on any of them, and it wasn't long before they were both brought to their knees after so many painful shocks. Ow. ACH. For Primus' sake, Barricade and Frenzy both ducked down, gritting through the constant pain. "Stop it. Only if you say please," Kamakura teased, crossing his mantis arms. Having been brought down to eye level with him, Starscream scowled and spat out, "Never." The mutated ninja could only shrug. "Suit yourself." The stag beetle horns began generating more electricity, only instead of moving outward, the energy actually moved into the mantis limbs on his arms, creating powerful weapons for him to use. Shocking scythes. With a loud battle cry, Kamakura lunged at Starscream with his grasshopper legs and swiped across the Air Commander's face in an X shape, leaving a visible scar and eliciting a painful wail from him. Then, the electricity flowed into Kamakura's leg as he bounced even further up, all while Starscream staggered away. Electro kick. Once again, he struck Starscream right in his head, a massive bolt of lightning surging through the Seeker and bringing him down. With his systems now fully on the fritz, the only thing Starscream could do was lay on the ground and convulse, unable to overcome the tiny jolts that were going through his body. THTH this, I isn't, FF fair. Kamakura landed in a widened stance, prepared for anything in case the Decepticon got a second wind. "Maybe not for you. But when it comes to quirks, anything's fair game. Which reminds me," he nudged his head over to his comrades. "I suggest you deal with Barricade over there while you've got the opportunity." Oh, right," Izuku affirmed, bringing his helmet back up as he, Kyoka and Mirko all gathered together, with Bumblebee and Jazz right behind them. "Let's go. Just be careful," Marissa shouted after them. "Remember, my healing gets less effective if you injure yourself repeatedly." "Ah, don't worry about it, girl." Mirko waved off. "This won't take long. Yo, earphone jack. Jazz, make sure he doesn't go anywhere. *WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCKT*. Transforming into vehicle mode, Jazz's deployed his speakers, aiming them at the downed Decepticon. "Way ahead, oh yeah. Kyo, let's bust some tunes open on Barricade." Kyoka climbed onto Jazz's rear and planted her feet firmly against the trunk and extended her jacks into the speakers, plugging them in. On it. Once they were both set, the duo unleashed a massive sonic attack onto him and Frenzy, who once again screamed at the new type of pain they were experiencing. "Arg, Primus, I said make it stop." Barricade growled, only to be met with Mirko and Bumblebee right in his line of sight. MHA. "Don't worry," the rabbit hero shouted over Kyoka's soundwaves. "It'll stop in 2 seconds." Leaping high into the air, Mirko spun around in a somersault and then extended her leg, falling straight down into Barricade's head. Lunar arc. She heard the Decepticon cop let out a grunt as he fell, straight onto Bumblebee's incoming fist. ZRKT, sayonara, sucka. With one clean uppercut, B watched as barricade landed in a heap, leaving Frenzy to try and run away. But Izuku wouldn't let that happen. With full cowling crackling around his body, he rushed right in front of the mini-con, arms crossed and wearing a glare behind his helmet. "And where do you think you're going?" Frenzy yelped and spun around, but was immediately grabbed by the twin guns on his back and thrown straight over Izuku's head, the one-for-all user slamming him straight through a nearby boulder. Then, with a 15% power punch to the head, he knocked Frenzy out cold, no fuss needed. I think I proved my point. Mirko bounced over and placed a hand across her protégé's shoulders. "Great work there, kid. A nice, effective KO." She craned her head back toward the Joes, wondering what'd be next. "So, what's the next move?" Well, we should, wait." Duke trailed off as his wolf ears perked up, hearing something from off in the distance. "Hey, earphone jack, you hear that too?" Unplugging herself from Jazz's speakers, Kyoka also picked up on it, even over all of the laser fire surrounding them. "Hey, yeah, what is that?" Duke chuckled and gave a wink. "That is the sound of the cavalry arriving." This piqued Hawk's interest. Really? Let me take a gander." With a single blink, the general's pupils and irises suddenly dilated to extreme proportions, becoming more animal-like as he stared off into the wide blue sky. "Whoa, that his quirk?" Mirko inquired. It's his bird's eye." Scarlet explained as Hawk kept scanning the horizon. "It lets him see quite a fair distance further than any normal human. Comes in handy on the battlefield, that's for sure. How'd ya think he earned the name, Hawk?" Just then, Hawk let out a short laugh and his eyes went back to normal, all while smiling to his crew. "Everyone, ya might wanna prepare yourselves. We're about to have a lot of company." There was a moment's pause, and in that moment, everyone else could hear what Kyoka and Duke heard, the sounds of high-speed jets soaring overhead. In 3, 2, 1. SHHHHYYYOOOOOM. Izuku, Kyoka and Mirko couldn't help but duck as, high up in the air, a squad of 7 jets came blasting onto the scene, with several Decepticons also taken off guard. Whoa! Izuku stared wide-eyed up at the 7 aircraft before they broke their formation, which is when they all began to bombard the cons with their missiles and other weapons. "What are those? I don't think I've ever seen jets like them." "Probably because you haven't," Duke confirmed, pointing up to the soaring eagles. "Kids, meet the G.I. Joe Skystrikers. One of the best damn birds the United States has ever built." Jazz returned to his robot mode, whistling at the impressive sight. "Woo, those are some pretty impressive fighters for human engineering." Hawk picked it up from there. "They oughta be. Commissioned by G.I. Joe and designed by MASK, the Skystriker is one of the most versatile aircraft ever made. Taking aspects of both the F-15 Tomcat and the F-22 Raptor and hybridizing them together into one magnificent bird." He reached down to his hip and pulled out a small communicator. "And the squadron is led by undoubtedly our best pilot for the job." Putting the comm close to his mouth, he called up to said pilot, "Ace. 'Bout time you showed up." "Ha. Sorry for the hold-up, General." Ace exclaimed from the other end, all while one of the Skystrikers flew directly over their heads and did a barrel roll, where they could briefly see the pilot, presumably Ace himself, wave down at them. Once the plane was back to its correct orientation, the craft sharply pulled up into an incoming armada of jet Viacons. "But better late than never, right? Yo Joe. Keep it up, soldier." Hawk encouraged. "We'll win this one yet." He nodded over to his fellow Joes, the Autobots, the students and Mirko. "Come on, all of you. There's still plenty of work to be done. Yo Joe." All of them echoed the battle cry and followed the general into battle, ready to bring down more Viacons. Although, before he left, Tiger Claw took a moment to pause in front of Starscream's head, taunting the Seeker with an aggressive pat to his own back. "Pleasure doin' business with ya, Screamer." Kamakura hopped over and added, "Here's some advice, if you want something done right, do it yourself." As the duo left, Starscream grit his metal teeth, seething with rage. This, CC cannot, continue. He forced himself to stand and shot straight into the air, intent on bringing the Skystrikers down even through the pain he was enduring. "I will blow these meat bags out of the sky, even if I do have to do it myself." As that was happening, Strongarm, Momo and Edgeshot were in the thick of the action across the battlefield, bringing down countless Viacons in their wake. Not far away, Bulkhead and Springer were also digging right into the carnage, with Roadblock and Wild Bill still riding along with the two wreckers. However, the quartet's ammo-fueled rampage was brought to a brief stop when the Skystrikers came zooming in from overhead, which also gave Strongarm and the others pause as well. "Ha! Seems that the cavalry has arrived," the Autobot cadet concluded. Wild Bill raised a fist and let out a, "Yee-haw. Yeah, about time." Ace showed that smirk and mugga, his. Momo couldn't help but stare up in awe, impressed by the fleet of jets. "Oh my, some of yours, I assume." "Yes ma'am," Roadblock confirmed, putting a hand up to his forehead to block the sun as he gazed up at the jets. "Skystrikers are comin' in hot," but then, he caught sight of something barreling toward them out the corner of his eye, making him gasp. And something else, too. Bulkhead, on your six." The wrecker rearranged his rear view, and knew that this wouldn't end smoothly from what he saw. "Uh-oh. Brace yourself. *WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHKT*. Lurching to his left, Bulkhead transformed and grabbed Roadblock, rolling to his back and then onto his feet with surprising speed, avoiding Blastwave in the nick of time. Strongarm and the others also took off in opposite directions, all while the Decepticon munitions specialist blasted wildly at them. Suffice to say, Blastwave wasn't too pleased. "AAUUGH. Bulkhead. Get back here, tiny coward." *WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHKT*. With a powerful stomp, Blastwave entered robot mode and immediately took out his X-18 Scrapmaker, leveling it toward the green Autobot and letting loose an onslaught of bullets. "Yara rara. Duck and cover," Edgeshot shouted, darting behind a boulder while Strongarm picked up Momo and took her with her. "Sweet Christmas," Roadblock shouted as Bulkhead ducked behind a rock, taking him along with. Keeping a solid grip on Ma Deuce, Roadblock stood with his back against their cover, asking, "This dude always like this?" "Pretty much." Bulkhead brought out his arm cannons, ready to counter-attack. "You think you can make a few dents in, I am without getting hit." Roadblock's smirk increased as he hefted up his M12 Browning machine gun, giving a confident nod. "You know it. But how's about we call in some air support?" He reached up to his earcom and contacted their teammates. "Bill, Springer, mind talkin', some heat offa, us." "Oh, damn right we can." Wild Bill obliged, him and Springer flying in and unloading more ammo at Blastwave, garnering his attention. "Hey, big guy, can y'all aim that thing without screamin', like an angry 2-year-old?" Bill taunted through Springer's onboard speaker. "Might wanna listen to, I am, Blastwave." Springer jeered as well, without noticing what else was happening below. "Otherwise, you're gonna, choom. Ah." To both of their surprise, Springer was hit directly in his tail strut by a missile, one that came from below and caused him to start losing altitude fast. "We've been hit. Mayday. Mayday." *WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHKT*. Not wasting a second, Springer transformed into robot mode, grabbed Bill from his cockpit, and slammed into the rocky terrain shoulder first, protecting the Joe and taking the brunt of the impact. "Bahahahaha." Blastwave guffawed, turning to his good friend. "Nice shot, Doctor." Stepping out from behind a boulder, none other than Flatline emerged, his arm raised with a small rocket launcher sticking out of his forearm plating. The weapon retracted and he gave a sinister chortle. HMHMH, well of course, mein Freund. I was not about to sit idly by weil they say Dummkopfs overwhelm you. Now, shall we practice medicine? Da. It's good to finally have upper hand. With his X-18 Scrapmaker at the ready, Blastwave leveled it at his Autobot opponents again, ready to unleash a maelstrom of bullets. Say, nighty-night, babies. Ahahaha. However, before he pulled the trigger, something unexpected happened. Right between them and the Autobots, a ground bridge opened up, taking the two Decepticons aback. Vot-Z, Flatline and Blastwave slowly approached the vortex in hesitation, only to be ran into by three tiny vehicles that made them stumble back. What is going on? Flatline charge for the ground bridge, but it closed before he could make it, leading his frustration to boil over. Gah, Neen. We were so close to getting into Z Autobot's headquarters. It was right there. Ah. Driving directly underneath him, Checkpoint and Anti-Blaze knocked the Decepticon medic off balance, sending him down onto his chest. Yeah, well, you're never gonna get there. Checkpoint shot back. Enjoy being losers. Hey, you cannot do that to Dr. Blastwave was about to shoot at the tiny bots, but Scythe suddenly flew in and landed right on top of his head. MHA. What? Get off. Reaching up, Blastwave tried grabbing at him, but whenever he was close, Scythe merely used his gun fingers to shoot at the Khan's hands, much to his irritation. Grr, stop now. Sorry, big guy, but you're in our way. Scythe kicked himself off Blastwave's head and transformed into his helicopter mode, flying his way across the battlefield to where Strongarm, Momo and Edgeshot were hiding out. Cadet, we've got a problem. Sergeant Scythe, sir. Strongarm saluted right as Checkpoint and Anti-Blaze rolled onto the scene. What's wrong? Did something happen? Checkpoint and Anti-Blaze assumed robot mode and the former pointed up to her. You're darn right, something happened. Remember that mini-con that Skybite snagged the other day? Turns out, it was a member of the Destruction mini-con team, and Swift managed to find the other two right here on this mountain. The news was not well met by the others. The Destruction mini-con team. Edgeshot shook his head. That sounds like the worst mini-cons for the Decepticons to come across. It gets worse. Anti-Blaze asserted. Swift convinced them to all powerlink with her, and now she's got a super mode that's gonna wipe out our Flare-Up and Windblade if we don't. Windblade. Momo shouted suddenly, taking Anti-Blaze by surprise as she rushed up and slammed her fists on his chest. Anti-Blaze, you should have led with that. We would have been gone 10 seconds ago. Strongarm stood up and echoed Momo's statement. She's right. We need to get to them before they're all turned to scrap. It was then that Scythe rotated in midair, turning to the large ridge all the way on the other side of the battlefield. It's not gonna be easy, Cadet. They're all the way up there, and Shadow Striker's there, too. They may have the numbers, but with Swift in super mode, they might as well have 4 cons up there. He swiveled back around to the police bot. The only way we're gonna even the odds, is if we all powerlink with a bot to give them a super mode. I see. Strongarm nodded in understanding. Who do you have in mind? There was a long pause as none of the mini-con council took their optics away from her, leaving the police cadet feeling a tad nervous. Momo and Edgeshot were also looking to her expectantly as well, leading Strongarm to point at herself. Wait, me. With an amused chuckle, Checkpoint wagged his finger at her. Hee, now she gets it. Yes, you. Who else better to wield all of us in battle? Shaking her head vehemently, Strongarm denied this. But I'm just a cadet. How would you even know? Anti-Blaze cut her off. Strongarm, listen, I know it's a lot, but let's face it, if the war hadn't broken out, you'd have probably been promoted to officer by now. This made the young bot do a double take as the gray mini-con continued. Sure, you're a stickler for the rules, but that can be ironed out with time. What's important here is that you've gone through an entire war. You've more than proven yourself to be able to powerlink with us. Strongarm, please. Momo shouted, bringing the cadet's attention down to her. You're being given a chance to match a devastating force. One which, might I remind you, is currently threatening our friends. Edgeshot only reiterated those thoughts. She's right. The time for hesitation has passed. We must act now if our allies are to survive. Don't you agree? After taking another moment to let everything settle in, Strongarm tightened her fist as her expression hardened. The weight of the task ahead of her was great, but if it meant saving her friends, she needed to take that chance. Alright, let's do it. She whirled around to Bulkhead, who was helping Springer up to his feet while Roadblock and Wild Bill grouped up. Can you two handle this from here? The two Wreckers and Joes, despite their weariness, weren't about to go down so easily. Haha, you betcha. Roadblock pumped a fist into the air. Go help the others. We've got this from here. Good luck, Strongarm. Bulkhead encouraged. We're all rootin' for ya. Taking a deep intake of air, Strongarm nodded back to him. Right, but be sure to call for backup in case. Springer balked, finally managing to get to his feet. With a flex of his arms, he launched Sabak and Fangblade from his shoulders, the mini-cons prepared to get into the mix of things. Don't you worry, cadet. We've got all we need right here. After all, wreckers don't call for backup. He and Bulkhead smirked to one another before speaking in unison, they call for cleanup. They slammed their fists together and charged into battle against Blastwave, Flatline, and the returning Viacons, with Roadblock and Wild Bill providing covering fire. Okay, let's go. Strongarm picked up the mini-cons as Edgeshot brought himself and Momo onto her shoulders, with Scythe flying alongside her. Peering up into the sky, she found exactly who she was hoping to see in just a few seconds. Erizar, I need a lift. After using her talons to slice off a pair of Viacon's wings, the Falcon Maximal was more than happy to oblige. Of course, Strongarm. Swooping down, she opened her claws up and grasped onto her teammate by the shoulders, hoisting her up into the sky with relative ease. I assume we're headed to the battle on the ridge, yes? Right. Our friends need our help. No need to tell me twice. Letting out a powerful screech, Erizar hoisted the group up with all her strength, flying toward the conflict as fast as she could. Come, we stoop to conquer. At said battle, things had quickly fallen out of the Autobot Fem's favor. Swift powerlinking with the Destruction mini-cons was something that they couldn't have taken into account, and it took all of their abilities combined just to hold her off. Flare-Up was darting around the battlefield, peppering in any shots that she could take. Unfortunately, though, Dueler's twin blasters made sure that those shots were obliterated before they could even hit Swift, thanks to their swiveling, multi-directional nature. Ha ha ha. Nice try there, Speedy. The copter bot derided. But you won't be hitting ME with those weak aft shots. Meanwhile, Windblade and RC were much more direct in their approach, brandishing their energy blades against Swift's own melee weapons. But again, the overwhelming difference in power was too considerable to be ignored. Windblade's Stormfall sword was no match for the durability of Drillbit's drill, which was only made more powerful thanks to Swift channeling her energy through it. The same could be said for the buzzsaw that Landslide's bucket wheel transformed into, countering RC's more rapid strikes with the sheer speed at which it spun. And you too, Swift continued, swinging her weapons wildly with an equally mad glint in her optic. You actually believe you've got what it takes to take on ME. The all-powerful Super Swift. Dream on. Getting knocked back for what felt like the fourth or fifth time, Windblade could only come to one conclusion. Ha, RC, Flare, this is getting us nowhere. The city speaker swiped her hand, ushering them back to her. We need to pull back and think of a different. There's no time, gah. RC's argument was cut off when Swift suddenly lurched back, causing her to stumble forward, right into a kick in the gut from the Decepticon lieutenant. She was sent hurtling down to Windblade's feet, who immediately knelt down to help RC up. Grr, we can't waste time, make a new plan. Every moment we stay here, the more Jinx and Quick Kick are put at risk. Ah, love, Flare Up spoke as she blinked in next to the two, pointing one of her pistols in the human's direction. I think they're doing just fine on their own. Peering over briefly, the Autobots saw that was indeed the case. Jinx and Quick Kick had been forced to fall back initially, but Shadow Striker was quick to follow after them. Much to the contrary of what RC thought, though, the two martial artists were doing quite well fending off the assassin. It helped that her main weapon was still jammed, so she couldn't shoot at her smaller targets, but even then, Jinx and Quick Kick were so swift and limber that they managed to run circles around her. Rag, you pests, hold still. Swinging her machete down, Shadow Striker went to slice Jinx in two, but the Kunoichi easily avoided it with a powerful leap. Taking aim with her own energy pistol, Jinx let loose in rapid succession, blasting Shadow in the face and making her cry out at the stinging pain. Gia. Kenzie. Jinx called out. Time to make do on your promise. Oh ho, yeah. Quick Kick leapt into the fray herself, perching herself on the overwhelmed Shadow Striker's knee. Let's see how y'all like this, Sniper Lady. Balancing on one foot, Quick Kick brought her other leg up, and then, yatata-tatatat. Her entire leg became a blur as she kicked Shadow Striker's joint, going at speeds that even the other Autobot femmes couldn't comprehend. And even more surprisingly to them, her knee was actually damaged, covered in dents and gouges within seconds. And then, when Shadow Striker tried to get Quick Kick off, scree, chow, auk. Her leg snapped, with only a few metal ligaments keeping it from falling off entirely. Shadow Striker crumpled to the dirt below, clutching her broken limb as Kenzie did a backflip away from the Decepticon. Gah! Primus above. How? This managed to make Swift gasp, and her shock quickly turned into anger as her optics changed from red to green as her power began to ramp up. I'll make you all pay for that. Her cannons aimed forward and they sent out a massive blast of energy at the Autobots, who managed to get out of the way before they became dust in a crater. No one, human or Autobot, does that to my teammates and gets away with it. Do you hear me? I will, clang, ah. The lieutenant was too caught up in her own self-aggrandizing, however, to notice Strongarm and Erizar coming in, the former kicking her in the back of the head before her maximal ally let her go. Strongarm set her mini-con and human allies down, allowing Momo and Edgeshot to run straight for Windblade and the others. Windblade! Windblade! The creation user called out in her sprint. Ha! Momo! Edgeshot! The city speaker propped herself up, her sights darting between them, Erizar and Strongarm. How did you? The mini-cons told us of your plight. Edgeshot explained. We've come to lend you a hand. His gaze trailed over to see Jinx and Quick Kick making their way to them as well, wherein he also saw the injured Shadow Striker. Though it would seem that you've managed to handle at least one of your adversaries. Ha! Give all the credit to those two, Edgeshot. RC nodded down to the ladies in approval. Nice work, you two exceeded my expectations, that's for sure. Quick Kick flicked her hair back with a prideful, HMPH, she wasn't so tough. But Jinx quickly dissuaded the egocentric statement. Don't go patting yourself on the back too much, Kenzie. Remember Snake Eye's lesson in how pride cometh before the fall. Okay, yeah, fair. Mackenzie admitted, though she still kept her smile about her. Still, it was totally wicked. But then, she took notice of Strongarm not too far away. Her curiosity piqued as the mini-con council surrounded her in their vehicle modes. RC, are we about to see what I think we're about to see? RC, Windblade and Flare Up all simultaneously smirked at the sight before them. Oh, I definitely think so. At that moment, Erizar came in and maximized into robot mode, landing next to the group. Very well timed there, Erizar. RC commended. The Maximal bowed her head to her. Thank you. But now, it's up to Strongarm to finish the rest. Swift, for her part, just sniggered at the sight before her. Really, now? You think that the cadet can defeat ME? The most powerful Decepticon on this planet right now? She leaned forward with an insidious smirk. I don't think so. Prepare to perish, auto glitch. Protocol 10463. If a criminal is showing signs of deadly force, an officer is to pacify the threat by any means necessary. Strongarm nodded down to the mini-cons and all of them transformed into their weapon modes, before they all glowed with a bright blue energy that made them float into the air around her. This definitely qualifies. Mini-con Council. Scythe announced, Powerlink. The leader of the council attached himself to Strongarm's left forearm, his dual Gatling guns spinning with intense energy. Anti-Blaze in his missile rack mode attached directly next to Strongarm's head, just next to her shoulder. And finally, the Autobot cadet grabbed hold onto Checkpoint's blaster mode, her body enveloping into the same blue aura as her battle mask and visor slid over her face. Strongarm, super mode. Slamming her foot onto the ground, Strongarm created a massive fissure that made Swift leap up, floating in the air as she glared down at her adversary. Swift, you have the right to be brought to justice. Swift threw her head back and cackled once again. Ha ha ha, you can try. Let's do it. The two opponents shouted at one another as both flew into battle, colliding in the middle with equally potent strikes. And then, in a flash of blinding light, CHYOOOOOOM. A massive pillar of light erupted from the battlefield, catching Optimus Prime's attention. He and Shoto had been holding off Skybite and his mini-cons rather well thus far, but the sudden burst of energy was enough to put a pause on nearly all the fighting going on. The group stared off in that same direction as the pillar disappeared, devolving into smaller bursts of blue and green energy that were just visible over the ridge obstructing their view. Well, that was unexpected. Shoto piped up. Very. Skybite smirked knowingly. Perhaps this means that Swift has found those other two mini-cons she's been searching for, and powerlinked with all three. Ha ha ha. Optimus' irises furrowed. If that is indeed the case, then that is all the more reason to keep pushing. In an unexpected move, Optimus whirled around with his arm extended and hit Skybite right in the head with the back of his fist, sending the Predacon straight down onto his back. Gurrah! Scrambling to his feet, Skybite brought his dual-arm cannon forward and opened fire on the Prime, who took up his ion blaster and returned the favor as he closed in. Growing considerably more irritated by the second, Skybite lurched forward and brought his arms up, grappling with Optimus once again. Do you ever know the meaning of the words, "Give up, Prime"? Only on the day that my spark stops beating, Skybite. Congratulations. That day shall soon come. Dragoness. Sandsting. Without needed to be told twice, the two mini-con torpedoes transformed and flew away from Shoto, to the latter's confusion. MHA. Optimus. Watch out. The half-cold, half-hot user attempted to send a wave of ice after them, but they were too fast. Optimus was only able to turn his head before it happened, being struck in the side by the two projectiles and sent hurtling into a large rock wall, causing bits and pieces of it to come down and partially bury him. Skybite gave a laugh as his two mini-cons attached to his back. Ha ha ha. Oh, Prime, he leapt into the air and transformed into his beast mode, narrowly avoiding Shoto's ice wave. I cannot believe you both are so gullible. This was my plan all along, Prime. Ah, what? Prime grunted. You see, I knew we would be met with resistance the moment we arrived. Skybite explained, his sharkish features twisted into a conniving smirk. I had anticipated that once you saw our troops all coming to this place, you subsequently would do the same to keep us from the Energon. But, this is not all of our troops by a long shot. Because while we're keeping your Autobots distracted here, our mining team is slowly inches their way closer to the Energon. Mwahahaha. The Prime couldn't believe it. How could he have fallen for such a simple diversion? No, he reached up to his comlink and attempted to call the base. Red alert. We, chihiz. This only made Skybite laugh even more. HM, yes, it would seem that our comm links do not work here. Apologies, Prime, but you're not getting any more backup. Blip blip, Prime. Both Skybite and Optimus were taken aback when all of a sudden, Jazz's voice rang out from the latter's comlink. Jazz, go ahead. What's the situation? He briefly glanced back to Skybite. It would seem that short-range communication is still active. We just got a huge new problem on our hands, Boss Bot. Jazz continued. Starscream's rip-roarin' mad and he's headed straight for the Energon. Hearing this, Skybite brought a fin to his chin. Not exactly in the plan, but I'm certain that Starscream will. And he might be a tickin' time bomb. Jazz warned, taking all of them aback. His body's sparkin' with electricity 'cause of Kamakura's quirk. If he gets too close to that Energon, we're all gonna be payin' the price for it. This changed Skybite's attitude completely. No. With both of his mini-cons going into full throttle, the Predacon practically shot across the battlefield in the air, intent on stopping the foolish Seeker before they cost them their lives. That imbecile. What does he think he's doing? Skybite, wait. Optimus stood up and shook off the debris, craning his head down to Shoto. Come, we must make haste. The boy gave a single note as Prime transformed, allowing Shoto to climb into his cab so they could pursue the flying shark. As that was happening, Jazz, Hawk and their group were also in hot pursuit of Starscream, the Seeker jetting himself over toward the Energon field as fast as his body would allow. Thankfully Seeker's initial plan of shooting down the Skystrikers hadn't gone so well, his system still on the fritz after Kamakura's assault. As a result, he was now flying with an injured arm and part of his wing blown off by a Skystriker's missile, though he still kept flying at a high speed all the same. Good God, he's really determined to get that Energon, isn't he? Duke noted. He could come crashing down at any moment, but he's still going for it. All the more reason to stop him. Jazz asserted before shouting to the Seeker. Starscream, just give it up. You're not gonna make it at this rate. But Starscream wasn't having any of it. Shut it. I will have that Energon, even if it kills me. I must not fail. Izuku frowned at that, turning to his team for advice. Okay, anybody got any ideas on how to bring him down? I could probably reach him if he were a bit lower. Kamakura said. But at his current height, I'd only be just short of reaching him. Well then, I think our safest bet is another pass over by the Skystrikers. Hawk recommended, taking out his communicator once again. Ace, you there? We need you to target Starscream and bring him straight down this time. Ace responded immediately, you mean the bot that just tried to scrap us? Sure thing, Hawk, wait, what the, ah. The sudden shout from the Joe took everybody off guard, with Hawk calling out to him in concern. Ace, what's going on up there? I don't know. Something just flew over our heads. A Decepticon? Budo questioned. Negative, it came from higher up. Almost like it fell straight out of the stratosphere. Wait. It's coming back and, og. The screams were much louder this time, and more frantic, leading Scarlet to gasp. Oh no, Ace. What the hell is happening? Almost as if he heard her question, Ace answered for them. It's scanning my jet with some sorta green light. WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHKT boom. Everyone paused at the familiar sound of transformation ringing out through the comm, followed by a massive sonic boom that echoed throughout the area itself. Ow. Kyoka covered her ears, as did Duke and everyone else. All of them could hear the sound barrier being broken, but the two with enhanced hearing were the most affected by it. Gah, well, it's a transformer, alright. Kyoka shouted, only to then notice something out the corner of her eye. Watch out. Incoming. What? Izuku shouted, his ears having popped from the sonic boom. Kyoka, what's, og? Unfortunately, Izuku was left vulnerable to Skybite's sudden descent, the shark Predacon biting down on the back of Izuku's costume with his teeth before pulling straight up into the air, leaving the others to gawk at what just happened. Izuku. Kyoka screamed. No. Skybite, you son of a bitch. Bumblebee immediately went for a mad sprint after the two, transforming into his beetle mode to pursue faster. ZRKT, get back here, ZRKT, you no good sack of, ZRKT, tunafish. High above, Izuku was left reeling as he was hoisted higher and higher in Skybite's maw, struggling to break himself free. Hey, gah, let me go. HMPH. Not a chance, Bug. Skybite growled back. Now that I have you as a hostage, the Autobots will surely think twice about trying anything against me. And with that problem solved, it's time to resolve another. Terrorize. Transforming into robot mode as he reached Starscream, Skybite held Izuku by the scruff of his costume, blocking the Air Commander from going any further. Starscream, what in the PIT are you doing? What does it look like? Starscream huffed and puffed, not intent on stopping. I am going to protect that energon. With what? Your lifeless body. Skybite admonished, flying closer to the Seeker to grab him by the shoulder. You look as if you're about to go into stasis lock. Leave and report to Flatline for repairs, I will oversee the energon. Now in an arguing mood, Starscream made his case quite clear. Let me get one thing straight with you, Skybite. He said whilst shoving his finger against the Predacon's nose. You are not in charge here. You may have orchestrated the plan, but I am the commander. I get final say in what I can and cannot do. Skybite shoved Starscream's hand away. Even if that means blowing up our goal along with you. Starscream, your body is convulsing with overcharged electricity. You need to be seen by the doctor. I will not tolerate. Wait, do you hear that? His optics widening, Starscream heard the familiar sounds of jet engines, and in the distance, he could see them approaching. Oh, scrap. More of G.I. Joe's aerial assault craft. We must, wait. His sights zeroed in on one craft in particular that was flying much higher than the others, and it seemed to be taking an abrupt downward turn toward them. And, as it closed in, they could see that this Skystriker was actually much different from its fellows. For one, instead of being a sterling gray color, it was pure white, with red detailing along the nose cone, cockpit, wings and tail fins. On its underbelly and wings, it also had 4 gun emplacements that were a shiny metallic red, which began to light up the closer it got to them. And last, but certainly not least, the jet had quite the noticeable addition attached to its topside, a large pair of long thrusters that boosted its speed even more. But even then, that's not what Izuku had focused in on. What he noticed first and foremost, was the big, prominent Autobot insignia, emblazoned near the tip of the nose cone for all of them to see. And from there, the mounted guns on the jet opened fire upon the cons as a voice belted out vengefully, SSKYYYYY by a T. W wah, no. Og. Skybite screamed and raised his arms, inadvertently tossing Izuku into the air. It's impossible. How did he? Aha. The Predacon yelped as he and Starscream were forced to get out of the Autobot jet's way, all while its canopy opened up to catch Izuku as he fell. Haha. Gotcha. The very second Izuku landed in the pilot's chair, a pair of seatbelts strapped themselves over the boy's chest, harnessing him in nice and tight. Hold on to your aft, fleshy. You're about to go on a wild ride. Inside his head, Izuku was confused and panicking, not knowing how he was still alive. The lack of a helmet and the proper flight suit meant that he should have been experiencing several Gs at this point and, at most, fall unconscious. But, he was alright. The pressure in the canopy felt completely normal. What? How am I not dead? Great question, answer later. The Autobot jet performed a barrel roll, causing Izuku to scream as they circled back towards Skybite and Starscream. Right now, it's time for us to get some payback on that sorry excuse for a Sharkticon. Rog. His thrusters going into overdrive, the Autobot blasted after Skybite and Starscream, who were attempting to flee as far as they could. Back on the ground, Kyoka, Jazz and the others could hardly believe what they had just witnessed. That guy saved Izuku. The Perplet beamed excitedly, whipping her head up to her partner. Do you know that guy, Jazz? Both Jazz and Bumblebee, however, could only stare on in silence at the new arrival, their processors struggling to comprehend it. It was him. There was no mistaking it. That voice, the attitude, the way he flew, it all lined up. It was only when a loud horn blared, signaling the arrival of Optimus Prime, did the two snap out of it. The Autobot commander pulled to a stop, let Shoto out, and transformed, jogging the rest of the way over. Jazz. Everyone. Is everything alright? We saw Midoriya get scooped up by Skybite. Shoto grimaced. Is he? Jazz raised a calm hand, a smile slowly forming on his features. Oh, don't you worry about Izuku, man. He's in the best hands possible. He then eyed his leader, nudging his chin up to the sky. Prime, take a look at who showed up. Craning his head up, Optimus quickly saw what Jazz was talking about, and he was left in the same state of disbelief as they were. No, it cannot be. ZRKT, Houston, we have ZRTK, the best thing ever. Bumblebee exclaimed, jumping high in celebration with a fist pumped into the air. Skybite and Starscream, meanwhile, were not having the best time. The Seeker's thrusters were starting to fail him, and their opponent was approaching fast. Please. Wait. But the Autobot jet was having none of it. The time was now. Transform. WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHKT. All of a sudden, several parts began to shift around Izuku, the entire cockpit and nose cone of the jet collapsing into the front intakes in order to form a broad, white chest piece, with the Autobot symbol situated inside a piece of the canopy that was left exposed. He was subsequently ejected from the craft, only to be caught by a hand that emerged from the underbelly, with a second arm doing so a second later. The sides of the jet rotated out, revealing themselves to be large legs with the underbelly guns on their sides. A pair of black feet folded out as the legs met to form the pelvis, which was locked together by the chest folding up and on top of it. It was then that the arms locked in place as well, the rear, circular intakes of the jet acting as the robot's shoulders. The guns from the wings also moved onto the forearms. Said wings of the jet compressed in toward the main body as the tail fins flattened out, allowing the twin thruster pack to rotate 180 degrees so that they were facing upward on the robot's back. In addition, the main thrusters and folded tail fins shifted down slightly, making for a more compressed backpack. Finally, the head shifted up and into place, and there was only one thing that Izuku could think of when he saw this Autobot's visage, Macross. Indeed, the Autobot's resemblance to the old mechs of Macross was almost uncanny, right down to the aerodynamic head shape, the V-shaped visor, and the tall, black fins that stuck up on either side of the head. The one other noteworthy feature was the Autobot's blue head crest, which stood out amongst the white and red of his color scheme. Once he had transformed, the Autobot blasted past the two cons, flying high above them while taking out a long-barreled blaster with his free hand. Haha. Ah, man, feels good to really get flying again. His attention shifted down to Izuku, who was holding onto one of his fingers for dear life. You okay there, Fleshy? Nothing damaged. No, Izuku stuttered, both in mild fear and complete amazement at this Autobot. Who are you? MHA. Who am I? The Autobot threw his head back with a laugh before catching sight of an approaching jet Viacon over his shoulder. He responded by casually aiming his blaster behind his head and taking a single shot, clipping its wing and sending it careening to the ground. With a confident tone that could instill awe and respect into anyone, the Autobot went back to Izuku and introduced himself. You can call me Jetfire. Second in command of the Autobots. And it's the end of Season 2 Part 30 of this What If. I hope you guys like it. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel.